in November. I'm so excited, but we'll have more details in the future. But for now, we got to focus in on the FNCS. We got 6 games ahead of us. Now, remember, we got 7 regions all competing here in the FNCS. We already have some winners in 3 of the regions, so we can crown them together. First off, congratulations. I'll start there in Asia. Go ahead, Runa and Pipo. Congratulations, you're Asia winners. Tell me about them.
Yeah, Asia was crazy. We had 3 teams, I believe it was, all within 3 points. 5 teams, I think, maybe, all within 3 points of each other. And it was Pipo Clip right there at the end, clutching up. And they only won by 1 point. It was so close. Unbelievable scenes.
Yeah, so good. Obviously, OCE was won by Volks and Looter. I'm so happy for these guys because Looter, obviously, we saw him go over to NA East and not necessarily perform that well, right? But we know when he was there, he wasn't very motivated, didn't put in the work. Now that he's back on his home region, OCE puts in a ton of work with one of the best players, if not the best player in the region, Volks, and now they are the champions, and yet again for both of them.
Absolutely. Middle East was incredible as well. We saw Cruel and Asta. Now, Asta was actually making his first finals appearance, and I believe going into this season, he hadn't made any money from Fortnite competitive, and this was the stage. He's sort of like a creative warrior, and we see that on a lot of different regions. You know, Cruel, the experience of Cruel picking up Asta and then popping off, winning the region. Unbelievable scenes.
So good. You'll love to see it, and because of that, they will take hold of the Axe of Champions 2.0. But let's remind ourselves what happened after those first 6 games coming out of yesterday, because it's very much set the tone coming into today's 6 matches. We cannot forget Aqua and Vino just having the performance of a lifetime right now. 220 points?
Yeah, unbelievable scenes from them yesterday. Absolutely incredible. They didn't quite have the best last game, so they would be a little bit more happy if they had a better last game and put themselves in a better spot for today. But sitting up in first place, you couldn't be much better.
No, and honestly, I'm really interested to see how these guys play today, because like Vino himself is known to obviously be a little bit shaky sometimes when it comes to high pressure situations. He's held it all together so well yesterday, and I'm really hoping this shows a change, because he was like the star of the show yesterday when it came to top of the team performance. Also guys like, you know, Tayson and Chapix up at the top, they're never going to choke when it comes to one of the biggest tournaments. They're always performing, and Mustache Malabuka I am so impressed with right now.
Yeah, really impressive.
So good. I love to see it. So with that all in mind, we got to start the show. We got to run this the way you guys are familiar with. So much to break down. So I'm going to send it on over to these guys.
Hello, me again. I am back. Here is the entire format that we've got laid out. We've already gone through the qualifiers in week 1 and 2. We've also already gone through the semi-finals, and that has left us with the 50 best teams in EU right now. Pure Play, day number 1, already gone. It was yesterday. If you missed it, sorry. You got to go back and watch after those. Some of the best games we've watched, right?
Oh, unbelievable.
We're on day number 2 of the finals so far, and that is where all of the prize money to play for. So we've, like I said, we've already got leaderboards, some points on the board already, but today is where it's going to find it all. This is going to be the champion decided, as you can see right here.
Yeah, very exciting stuff. But of course, to get there, they're going to need some points. And you guys are probably well aware of what's going on here. But 32 points for the victory route. You can see at the top left of the screen. And of course, those cascading placement points starting at that 25th spot. So the teams want to be making their way into those placements. And every single placement, they will gain a point all the way up until 3rd, of course, as well, where it gets a little bit more top heavy, which is great to see. But each elimination being worth 3 points as well. Very, very good opportunity for a lot of teams to pop off today. But you might be wondering at home, what are these guys playing for? What's on the line? I think Zeke's got the answers.
I always have the answer. Let's take a look at our overall prize pool. So remember, 7 regions means everyone has their own respective prize pool. But we can actually take a deeper dive here into EU. We could break down what these teams will be walking. We talked about it yesterday, $300,000 for that duo that could come in first place. But keep in mind, if you're tracking with your favorite duo and they could jump up, say, from last into top 10, such a jump in prize money, right? So wherever you're watching, Twitch, YouTube, Legends Landing, wherever, root for your favorite duo all the way to the very end, because they are competing for the Axe of Champions 2.0. We showed it off yesterday. It made its debut, and now these players want to get their hands on it.
Yeah, I've already seen some of the OCE players and some of the Asia players as well. Very excited to have this in their locker already.
Oh yeah, it looks incredible. It shines, it glimmers, it is unbelievable, and I'm excited to see some of our players rocking it, and we will find out today who on EU will be using that pickaxe.
Absolutely. Right now, our current leaders, like we mentioned earlier, Vino and Aqua is one of the teams I want to highlight. Now, they're kind of early in mid-game. We've talked about throughout qualifiers, semis, cash cups, whatever it is. We've continually seen these guys, of course, in the command cavern. It just seems like almost by chance that in the finals they've managed to get a good part of this uncontested. And, you know, I mentioned earlier, Vino right now is like the all-star player. The amount of solo clutches he's done, the amount of damage and just effort that he's put in right now is astronomical.
Yeah, he is unbelievable. We got to talk about Aqua as well. You know, the experience of Aqua being able to play the high ground so effectively well. It is a match made in heaven for this duo at the moment, and it is heaven heavenly, the results that they're being able to achieve. We're seeing pop-offs from Aqua, we're seeing pop-offs from Vino, solo clutches from Vino, we're seeing Aqua height takes, just landing on height. I love it. And you can see the performance yesterday lived up to that hype.
Yeah, exactly. 2 victory royales. That was back-to-back, game 3 and 4. They had a bunch of other top 10 placements at the same time. And honestly, it kind of looked like these guys were unstoppable at a point. But you mentioned that final game, they did fall early, and that kind of allowed Tayson and Chapix to catch up. So now, you know, when we're coming into this day, when it comes to who's the winner, if the top 2 teams keep playing like they were already playing, man, it's going to be really hard for anyone to catch up.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of top teams. And another team that maybe people might have expected to do a little bit better is, of course, Hellfire and Scram. Now, a lot of people would have thought, okay, they have Greasy Grove uncontested, they have the Whiplash vehicle, they have so much loot there to themselves. They haven't quite been able to live up to those expectations, but sitting in 10th right now, not too bad.
I mean, 10th's not bad at all, especially since Hellfire didn't make it out of Opens last season. I think Scram placed 8th as well overall in the finals. So, like, this is looking like a good performance overall from them. I think 2 of the games where they struggled the most was game 3 and game 4. The games that actually we just talked about, Aqua and Vino won. You know, they ended up going down to Surge on pretty far rotates for them. So I'm hoping that, again, they've kind of reviewed those far zones at that east side and have figured things out a little bit.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we talk about the vehicle they have to offer, and I think that's the most appealing factor of Greasy Grove. It can work in your favor, of course. You can get those easy rotations, but it can also work against you. You know, a lot of teams will be focusing you. You're the only one of the only vehicles in the game, and of course, you have to expend a lot of materials to box that vehicle up. I did a little bit of VOD reviewing. I was looking into their games. They only had 250 brick each going into the half and half zone, so they'd used up a lot of that using that to sort of box up the car.
Yeah, that's a bit of a surprise, to be honest. Hopefully we figured that out today. Another team, let's be real, Malibuca Mustache. This is like the highlight team so far. Obviously, they're 3rd in the leaderboards, but they are fragging out. You know, there's 3 games that they've definitively won off spawn out of the 6, which, you know, like we saw in the qualifiers, was enough to get them to fly up the leaderboards. The others, they haven't necessarily like won straight off, but they also haven't lost the fight, right? It's like one goes down and then they just kind of disengage and go down later.
Yeah, that's definitely right. I mean, we're sort of seeing a similar performance as to what we saw in the qualifiers, but at a little bit of a different degree. They're not going out and winning the games. They had a couple of seconds yesterday, and they're not necessarily going down off spawn like we saw in the qualifiers, but they're sort of finding a mid-ground right now, and it is working. And, you know, we saw them absolutely popping off. We saw them, was it 16 elimination game?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely crazy. And we know how scary this duo can be when they make their way to endgame. Another duo I want to highlight, though, maybe a little surprise sort of pick for a lot of people, and surprising as how well they're doing, is Vika and Jackson. Now, they're sort of, well, they were contesting Benji and Savage at the right side of the collider, the east side, and they're performing really, really well. They're having a really, really good day so far, a really, really good finals. They're being able to get their Storm Surge done early because they're utilizing the Mythic Thermal, the Mythic Thermal Assault Rifle that is there. They're getting their Surge done early, and they're proving why they're very, very good in the endgame.
Yeah, these guys are grinders, right? They've been putting in the practice and scrims for basically for the last 2 seasons at least that we've kept seeing these guys' name pop up, and now it's starting to show in the finals results. Kind of some of the games that they struggle on was, funnily enough, being pushed by Tayson and Chapix, right? When some of the best teams in the region start to push into you, you're going to struggle. But it was kind of a cascading effect because they're landing on the east side, and if they push a little bit too much to the north, Tayson and Chapix don't like that. That's some of their loot over there, and they kind of pinch, and that was kind of how they went down in some of those games early on. So, yeah, I'm wondering off spawn if they figured it out this time.
Yeah, definitely right. I'm excited to see that all go down. But I believe Zeke's got another content piece for us. What have you got, Zeke?
Check this one out. Yesterday, we got to be in the lobby with Tayson, hear from him. But today, we'll be in the lobby with Hen, the reigning FNCS champion. So let's hear what he has to say. This is In the Lobby with Hen.
Hey everyone, my name's Levin2K and I'm joined in the lobby with Hen. Hen, it's a pleasure to be with you, man. You've won a bunch of FNCSs now. You're almost tied with Tayson. Where would you sort of rank yourself compared to some of the best of all time?
Probably like top 10 in the world, like right now.
When you were clutching in the final game of FNCS, did you feel like you were the best player in the world?
Actually, I felt like I was zoned out during the game. I can't lie.
And so in that moment, did you realize that, like, hold on a minute, I'm about to win this tournament for us right now?
Nope. Didn't even think of it at all. I was just like focused on the game and that's it. I was just hearing Queasy as well in my ear, like, so I just focused up and had to clutch the game for the boys.
Obviously, that FNCS you won and you know, another one added to the list for you. From the get-go, when you started playing with Queasy, did you believe that, like, you could win the FNCS?
I believe that we could win FNCS, but I didn't know it was going to be that season.
So for you, like, what's like the #1 sort of career highlight in terms of just, you know, everything you've played, tournaments throughout the past?
It would have to be the first FNCS that I won with Chapix and Janice. But like one time that I would want to go back to is probably World Cup because I wasn't that good then and I didn't have much tournament experience. So I was very nervous. I was shaking all the time. and I just like to see how I do back then now.
Are you a very competitive person outside of Fortnite as well?
100%, because it's boring if you lose all the time. If you win, then you should be happy, like just chilling.
You've played in a couple of LANs, right? Are you excited for LAN to come back? Do you feel like you can sort of thrive in that environment?
I'm just waiting for that LAN experience so I can like show everyone how good I am, like outside of like playing inside my house, you know?
So obviously there's been a lot of changes to the map this season. There's a lot of new things in the game. You've just won an FNCS. You must be confident, right? Going into this one, do you think you have what it takes to win it?
Any sort of time in any sort of tournament, I always feel like there's still a chance to win it. So I still have that mentality that I can still win it no matter what.
Well, look, there'll be lots of people rooting for you. Look, if you want to root for Hen, where can the people find you?
So my Twitter is HenTVV with 2 V's, you know what I'm saying? And then just Hen on YouTube. So go check me out and go check Levin out.
I usually don't get shout-outs in these, man. Thank you very much, bro. Look, it's been a pleasure having you, man. Thank you very much for joining me. It's been Levin2k and Hen in the lobby. We'll see you guys all next time.
I mean, Hen, what more can we say? He's incredible. We love to see it. He'll be competing today and the next 6 games ahead of us, but now we have to kind of shift gears a little bit. We got to talk about these other duos and potential POYs, head-to-head matchups. Let's start with Cammy and Seti. So you probably have heard these names before, right? They're landing this Cammy split, but because of this new season, it's like the 2.0 version.
Yeah. I mean, I hope you've heard these guys' names. If you follow EU, Cammy and Seti are 2 of the most renowned players there, 2 of the best players we have. And they take this kind of area in the middle, near Puddle Pond at the center there, which this whole kind of area we just call the Cammy split, right? Because if you just land on a bunch of extra loot and you're called Cammy and you own it, like, you own it. It's your name now.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And there is plenty of loot there. It might be a little bit deceiving. And what is he? You've got a gas station and some cars and all sorts. But, you've got some good loot there. There's plenty of chests. There's plenty of floor loot spawns as well. You can see one right there. And this is definitely a really good way of them to be able to rotate because there's plenty of rotational devices nearby. They have the cannons. They have all sorts of things which we'll touch on a little bit later on. But, of course, Cammy and Seti, they're that sort of low-ground duo, that will be very, very consistent. And they're not necessarily going to be popping off in every single game, winning games, but they'll be consistent across the 6 games, and that's where they get their points.
Absolutely, 100%. And that's kind of what we've seen through the majority. We have seen them able to do big pop-off weeks as well, but not necessarily so much in duos. That was at the trios time, but it's finals is when it all works out. But of course, this is the main map. This is their drop in Cammy split, like we mentioned, very center to the map. So when you're looking at getting a bunch of surge, a bunch of damage, you have to kind of understand the positions that are around you for whichever specific zones you're going to use, right? So yesterday, for example, if we take game number 1 and game number 5, I'll tell you why we're choosing those games in a little bit of a second. These are the first zones. So game number 1 and game number 5. So the positions that they want to actually go for in these is usually here to the east of Tilted Towers, right? This gives you huge visibility over this north side, but instead they end up going down to this position in both of those games, right? So let's go back a little second. Why did they end up taking that, right? If we go to the red first, which was game number 1, we'll see the second zone. So what ended up happening here in this first game is they tried to get here, however, Melody and Kefi ended up taking this 3 minutes into the game. Wow. So early. So instead, they wasted 2 minutes rotating down here to get to this spot, which gives them a little rubbish visibility, quite frankly, right? Then when this next zone pulled south, they had no tags because all the players are rotating all the way around them. And essentially, they just went down to surge, right? So, bit of a rough one. Let's contrast that. Game number 5. You can see the first zone's pretty much the same, but the second zone, much better for them. So here, they didn't waste time going for this spot because they knew it was taken. They got to this area instead. But because this zone pulls down here, that means that the majority of the players are going to be in Tilted now, instead of being all the way in this area, giving them way more visibility. So essentially just that small change of timing, not wasting 2 minutes to try to get to position that was taken, save them that with a little bit of zone RNG as well, basically got them through that game.
Yeah, some crazy stuff there. And, of course, a really, really good analysis there. It's a breakdown. Fantastically done indeed. Now, another duo that I want to talk about that sort of popped off a little bit yesterday was, of course, Z Andy and Joe. Yeah. Now, of course, they're landing down at the sign-up station. I highlighted yesterday Hen and Queasy all the way up the north. Now we're moving down to the south, and we can see they're going up against Flixie and Kidio down here. Now, in the first game, it didn't quite go to Ziandi and Joe's way. We saw them sort of contesting that main building, and it wasn't quite working out for them in the first game. But oh boy, did the final 5 games go well for them.
Yeah, exactly. That first game, especially when we watched in the end game, it was Flixing Kiddo with like 8 eliminations. I thought, oh, this is a turn of events, because when in the lead up to this, Ziandi and of Joe, of course, were significantly better off spawn. They did an average 700 damage in the first zone, which is more than any other team, right? So it seems like they were the owners of this. And of course, game 2 to 6, that was the case.
Yeah, they really were. And of course, in this POI, it is all about claiming that main building. You can see it right now on your screen. This is the building with all of the good stuff, all of the good loot. There isn't any all the sort of slurp barrels there. There isn't any of those, but I think you got to prioritize loot over that health in that early stage of the game, because you'll find yourself some minis and some big pots in the chest. Now, something that's interesting and something that I want to highlight is, of course, the sign-up station rotates. Now, we're seeing sign-up station all the way down to the south side of the map. And again, we're going to sort of highlight a zone that might be a little bit unfavorable for a duo that's landing here all the way up north. Now, that's not looking good, is it? That is looking rough for anyone other than Ziandi and Joe, okay? And the reason for this is, of course, they're able to use, there's 3 rifts down towards the east side of sign-up station. What they do is they use the rifts, and they don't go straight to zone, which a lot of people would think. They go to the butter barn, pick up a launch pad, buy one off of the Mancake NPC, and then rotate all the way up into the zone that way. There are some other options, of course, though. We saw them doing this a lot yesterday, and here's a few sort of positions that they get themselves into just outside of Tilted Towers. Even though they might get some off-spawn surge, plenty of opportunities for them to get surge there as well. Now, you might be thinking, that's a pretty standard rotate. It's something that we've seen them do a lot of, but there are other options for them. This is not the be-all and end-all. Those rifts have potential to take you to the rifts to the west, and then they can rotate all the way into zone just outside of the fortress, which can get them some really, really good storm surge tags. We can see plenty of hills and elevated positions for them to get to. And again, likewise, to the east, there's more rifts. They can rift to rift. It's like a rift hopscotch almost, you know? You can see rift to the south of Kondo, and then going up onto the hills in the Sanctuary. So what this allows them to do, and the reason why they might do this, is it gets them to that less congested side of zone, and hopefully for them, allows them to get their way through the end game. So that's a little breakdown of them. But Zeke, I believe you've got another content piece.
Dude, I always have them ready to go. Don't even worry. We're just going to jump right into this one. This one is how to use.
I really like this addition. It's every time good to have new skill set.
The way I use mantling is by, when I'm build fighting someone, for example, I just build a wall and then surprise attack them by just climbing up and then pumping them.
Mantling is really great for getting from high areas to low areas.
It's very fun to use because you can still get to high ground, clutch some points.
It's good when you have like no mats. So especially in endgame or off spawn, that's probably when you use like the mantling mechanic.
I use it a lot when I like jump up a wall now, so I don't have to build a stair or something.
If you have low mats and you're trying to save them in endgame, or if you're just trying to like sneak attack someone.
I think mantling is actually a really good addition to the game. I use it basically for any situation. I use it in fights, I use it in endgame, especially in endgame when you've got no mats. It's super good to like maneuver around builds.
I think this shotgun is really good when you're in a box with someone.
Some situations I use it for close fights and stuff.
Oh, for the drum shotgun, you're for sure when I get in the box.
It's a perfect item to use it.
Instead of an SMG, just use the jump shotgun. Full run to the face.
I use the drum shotgun a lot in solos, not much in duos. My duo uses it sometimes, but I prefer to use the striker and piece people up, and then he just gets in with the drum.
I think this gun is really, really underrated.
If you hit your shots, then it's good to use.
It makes the players more visible.
Yeah, I think the best situation is when you're like on a hill and try to get storm surge or something. It's probably the best way to use it.
I used it and it was insane. It does like 50 to the head and 20 to the body, so I think I'm going to use it more for finals.
I really like the mechanic, it's good.
Tactical sprinting came by, it's definitely my new go-to.
Oh, I love this feature. It's one of my favorite features this season. Follow someone and catch up to him.
It's a solid way to make it through endgame by just sprinting.
The tactical sprint is really good, get ahead really far, but you also need to watch out before you get shot.
Like, I think it's probably the best thing Fortnite has added in a long time.
Endgame, we box up, let it recharge, sprint, and it's just a very good addition. I like it a lot.
If you see one, just take it.
I use it in almost every game.
I think it's a really good addition to the Fortnite.
One of the best things in the combat SMG is the great short range.
I'll probably pick the combat SMG over the shotgun.
Mid-range, it's pretty good as well sometimes.
And it also, even when you're up close, again, more damage than a shotgun anyway, so it's really good. Best gun right now, I'd say.
If your teammate has one and you have it in duos, you both have it and just get in, it's just guaranteed refreshes.
There you have it. That's how to use. Now, I will say, we have to get our casters out here because we got to talk predictions. We don't have a lot of time before we jump into this game. It's Shy Wager. It's 11-2K. They'll be hanging out with us, casting all the action. Gentlemen, with a minute, we got to speed run this. What can we see coming into today's games that will be different from yesterday? Shy, you got your hands up?
Steady, Kemi, consistency all the way to game 12. Final moment, craziness, and they live and they win, and it's over. Nice.
I don't think we're going to see much difference. I expect to see much of the same top players performing at the highest level.
Straight up, right now, Tayson and Chapix are in second. The only difference is they're going to be in first.
Yeah, absolutely. They're in the prime position to take over that first place spot. And of course, Hen and Queasy, we saw them didn't have too great of a day yesterday, but I'm a big fan of them. I think they're going to do well today. I think they're going to come a little bit of a comeback. They're going to mount a little bit of a comeback on the rest of the lobby. And I want them to. I really, really want these guys to pop off today. And I think they definitely can.
Today's a big day for a lot of these duos, right? They have that in the back of their minds. We could be FNCS Duos champions. We have to go back. We have to VOD review. We've talked a lot, and I know we will continue to talk over the course of the day, which means we have to get ready, man. The battle bus is all warmed up for us, which means we're kicking off the competition. I'm telling you, Fortnite fam, 6 games of action ahead of us. Only one duo can be FNCS Duos champions. This is game 1 of the FNCS.
Day 2 of the finals. We had 6 amazing games yesterday. 11 high-stakes competition. An island up top that no one can enter. Only the VIPs and the rest of the region trying to just climb.
Look, yesterday was a phenomenal precursor to what will be a phenomenal finish. We have so many of the elite teams in the region, all vying for one thing and all incredibly tight closely together.
Yeah, they want that win, a share of the $1.3 million available for EU. That's a big sum number. Even just one change of placement in the top 10, it's just mountains of cash.
It's life-changing, right? Of these, every single engagement matters in that regard, right? You're seeing somebody jump up to, you know, just insurmountable amount of life-changing circumstances. I think the big thing, right, is for the ones who are closer, the higher amounts, right? How can you cement this as part of your legacy? Now, with so much on the line, in-person events coming back soon, it's a lot going on right now.
Absolutely, and usually players are sweating. They're just waiting for that momentum to ride them to the next game. They've had a few hours of sleep so far, so for game 7, the first game of day 2, let's see what they've had at the drawing board. Let's see exactly what they've had cooking overnight.
We're heading right in game number 7. We saw so many off-spawn engagements yesterday, so many clutches, huge shots. We saw betrayal when it comes to POI landings. We'll see whether there's updates in that regard around the map, but a fight that we were accustomed to seeing towards the back end of yesterday. Clown, Refs Guard, over here just towards the west of the Bugle, Siren and Asvi below them. Who will come out on top of this fight in day 2? It looks like Refsguard and Clown are a bit battle damaged right now, opting to try and get away. And Asvi actually maybe getting a bit too big for his boots, overstepping his line, getting taken out. And so now Siren trying to find space to get the revive off, but a rocky start here.
Definitely giving Refsguard a little bit of time. Did not expect the third party to come from the right side. I think that's the biggest issue for Asvi right now. All good, though. This fight kind of dictates who controls the middle of the map, you know, who gets to leave first for third parties on the top right side.
Yeah, it's all goody. Just the first game of the day, at least, right? And we saw game 1 yesterday wasn't necessarily a reflection of how that day would go out in terms of the teams who were able to do well. You know, it does take time for some of these teams to get into their rhythm. But ultimately, for some of these teams, especially if you're higher up in the standings, you don't really got time on your side. You just have to hit the ground running, be ready. Flois and Mappy, unfortunately, Mappy wasn't quite ready off spawn as he's down, and so Flois in a clutch situation has a bit of a loadout in terms of his weaponry arsenal, but the materials are seriously lacking. Podesai and Snazy will very much be looking to make up for some of the lost time yesterday. They didn't have the best of days, and certainly a team with high expectations going into the final. This is their chance to rewrite history.
Definitely a vibe of continuation from day number 1 instead of a new beginning of day number 2. We saw so many surprises. You mentioned just game one in general from yesterday. Things we didn't expect to happen, things just exploding left and right. It feels like now in day two, it's kind of just the same old, same old.
Yeah, so far, I think it's definitely a slower paced start. Similar to what we did see in game 6, right, where teams are a bit more cautious. As I say that, though, things are really kicking off. Flois is found out. Podesai and Snazy, the Frenchies, will win out here. And their journey to trying to move their way up in the standings will continue. These two, Malibuca Mustache, a team that I have predicted to leave today as the winners, currently sitting in third. The most interesting thing with them today will be whether or not some of their off-spawn success will continue and translate into wins, of course. Landing towards the top side of Command Cavern, they can often go up against Pinkin and Nas, which is a very interesting fight we saw play out at times yesterday.
Yeah, definitely. You talk about off-spawn success. I would say off-spawn is the question for them overall, right? Are they ever going to be successful game after game? Because they spent a lot of time in the Cavern overall. Sometimes it did not go well whatsoever, and that's what's kind of hindering them, I feel like, from even just being in first.
Well, if there's anyone that's going to hinder their chance of getting first, it will be Aqua and Vino, the current first-place team. A dominant performance from Aqua and Vino. All throughout yesterday, it felt like they were just on point, except for really the last game. Game 6, they finally showed us that they are human. They do bleed, but I expect them to come out today and look a lot better. Of course, they're landing the bottom side of Command Cavern. Game to game, depending on where the Gunner NPC spawns, they also do have access to the Vault there as well. So definitely a team we'll continue to watch out for. And along that same vein, Ziandi, Joe, Mini Miner, big these guys up and sort of broke down how they've been so successful. And another example of a team, Shire, where, you know, in terms of the actual circumstances, I don't think much will change. I do expect these guys to continue on that top trajectory they've been on.
Actually very impressed by them in general because they were contested to start off the day. I think this is the most impressive bout of display we've seen so far just off spawn in terms of pushing someone out, being in the top 5, and just thriving all the way on the south side at Synapse Station. Past that, Fury, Bubak, I think we started with them overall yesterday at this fight near the Sanctuary. And whether it's the Sanctuary, the Joneses, the jungle, that's where things just get a little bit too crazy, too hot to handle.
Yeah, these fights can often be very exhilarating or the opposite. I think what we saw yesterday was some of these fights would play out relatively quickly. Yapko and Savid at times did have their struggles in the earlier games, maybe started to piece things together towards the end of the day. So they're sitting here at 24th, middling right now. But another example of a team where this is the opportunity now to make up for lost time. Bubak and Fury. Interesting because they're a team who are revered a lot of the time for their fighting ability. Haven't quite been able to translate that, and so we'll see if they can maybe hit some harder hitting shots today. It's the best time to do it. Best time of the season. Last day of the finals when everything matters just that bit more. Belusi in the feed taking out Grolls. That will be interesting to follow. So we got action going on all over the place.
Cafe Melody, same hill, going for the same tags. When it comes to your early game checklist, what are some of the key things that teams must do? What are Cafe Melody doing right now to ensure that, you know, the rest of the game goes well?
Well, the big thing, right, is in terms of just any basic Fortnite fundamental, you want to get loot, right? You want to acquire a loadout, get your loot. We had some brilliant content pieces around, you know, the loot that teams will try and the loadouts teams will try to acquire. And once you loot, you want to farm, make sure you get your materials up to max.
Absolutely, and make sure that you have everything set up for the rest of your game. Now, we just looked at Chucho Trulex. We also looked overall at, you know, Cafe Melody, how they're going. Their counterparts, Seti and Cammy, also really interesting with them overall, how they move. I believe we have Reese on the sidelines looking at exactly what goes into the early games with Seti and Cammy specifically.
Your beliefs have indeed come true. I am here. Say and Cammy are in the exact position that I just talked about at the top of the show. And as I'm saying that, they're in a cannon because they've just managed to get a ton of tags onto what I'm guessing is Kefi and Melody here, because they're the ones who usually take this hill for them.
Really nice update there from Reese, right? This is one of the key fundamentals, right? After you have gotten your loot, you have farmed your materials, or even while you're doing so, you'll see these top teams are looking for these strong positions, elevated positions on hills, mountains, where they can have a line of sight which allows them to take shots at players, accumulate damage. And for maybe the people who are watching the FNCS final for the first time, or any competitive Fortnite for the first time, Shai, would you like to tell them why they need to deal damage, even if it isn't for an elimination?
Yes, you want to make sure you're staying aggressive, staying active. If not, lightning will start to strike you from the skies. How and why? It's a mechanic in the game called Storm Surge. So essentially, the rule is deal damage or get dealt damage to. We've just kind of alluded to it multiple times. It happens in some instances when the zones are starting to move from the 2nd to 3rd, and then onwards from that, there's one at the 5th zone and one at the 7th as well. Just want to make sure there are enough players in the lobby still active, not just hiding in bases, everyone having a checklist of their own for the mid game.
Yeah, and it's why you'll see players going to great lengths to put themselves in position to deal damage, right? Of course, if you can get an elimination, you're going to get an elimination as well, right? You know, the profit that you can get from that is, of course, going to be significant. But ultimately, you want to stay above that Storm Surge line in your pursuit to getting to the later stages of the game.
When it comes to Mustache Malabuka, they've done pretty well so far in staying ahead of Surge generally. You specifically, Levin, predicting this team. Talk to me about the expectations you had coming into the day and the things you've seen in day one. How do they kind of differ and look like for Mustache Malabuka?
I think when it comes to expectation, the expectation was this is a team that very much doesn't have problems with Surge because they are so effective at dealing damage. They are such prominent fighters. They have silly aim. They understand relatively good positions, and so they're always good on Surge. When you allow these guys to get to endgame, they are one of the most dominant teams in Fortnite history when it comes to their ability to get high elimination games. We saw that yesterday as well, where Mustache had a 12 elimination game by himself, right? Of course, these guys, you know, they do heavy damage. And yesterday, I think things sort of played out how you'd expect for them. Of course, we know the off-spawn battles they have, and so sometimes they might not get games. They can play out fully as a duo. But the biggest issue that they've had, I don't think has necessarily been to do with them as a team. It's more so been how dominant the likes of Tayson and Chapix on our screen and Aqua and Vino have been. And so it might sound sad in some way, but they just have to hope. If you're Malabuka Mustache, you have to just hope you keep playing your game and one of those two teams above you starts to slip up.
Going to be a slippery slope, but that's one of the beauties of the 12-game format, the 2 different days. Not only are you just playing your game, you have new stakes, and you'll notice cannons, if you're coming in from, you know, just playing normal Fortnite games, not arena, why aren't people just shooting others with them? Why is it only just, you know, bodies flying? That's been disabled in competitive playlists in general. So you'll see people chaining cannons and just using them for rotation. On the other side of things, towards, you know, Rocky Reels, the desert side, lots of geysers to be able to use. They have their own rotation down there.
Yeah, of course, the geysers are an interesting form. I think where we're sort of moving into the deeper stages of the game, as the second zone will start to sort of close its way in, it's going to be harder, right? All these players populated in this southern area makes it so difficult. If you get caught out in the sky, these are top-level Fortnite players. You will get shot, right? So you have to be careful. You have to be wary about how you go about that.
This is where we were just talking about Storm Surge. You can see the warning popping up on the right side of the screen. You have a damage threshold. It kind of warns players how much they kind of need to do, how many tags they need to stay above the threshold so they don't get damaged. Right now, Scram and Hellfire at risk of that damage. 73 below overall. We need to land about 2, 3, 4 AR shots to just get ahead of the line. But usually, what's the number that's good to have on threshold at this point?
Well, you want to be aiming to be around 200 or so above, right?
Insurance.
Yeah, that's a comfortable market. It might mean that you do still have to do some damage once we get to the moving zones, but 200 above is a comfortable point, but 76 below, not comfortable. That is not where they want to be. You can see the desperation from Scram here. He's just sort of looking around anywhere possible to see if he can deal some sort of damage.
He's trying to. A few ramps up, kind of blocked.
I don't think they'll be too worried, right? Because this is a southern zone. Everybody on the map having to go towards the south side. They are in a relatively good position to actually do the damage that they need, but it's going to be about whether or not they can actually connect with the shots. They're set up in a nice position, but if they can't actually hit the shots, then their positioning will mean relatively little. Jackpo and Savid positioned in the zone. The remnants of the fights we discussed in the sanctuary area.
I mean, we told y'all it's going to be a slow burn if it doesn't immediately just disintegrate. see exactly what Jacko can do right now. Not much on either side. This is just going to be another delay. The map is pulling so far down right now in terms of the zone. Half of it is already just in the southern water. This is a very irregular, far distance for people to travel. I don't even think Savid predicted he'd be inside purple skies right now, but here it is. The pinch actually breaking down, pushing forward. It's Kovacs that's taken out. Another spray from Savid, left and right inside the box. This man is fighting inside the deep night of the storm and is still landing damage. Now 190 above, getting multiple knocks. Another one on Savid's wall. This time he has help from his teammates on the backside. It's Queasy who's forced to fight here, and he gets taken down.
Yeah, this is absolutely... it is mad right now, right? So much just went on there. You're seeing now Hen in a 1v1 up against Savid. Two premier names in the EU region, but both fragmented, missing their teammates. Queasy and Hen going down here, sitting in 33rd place at the moment. The reigning FNCS champions. They were so dominant last season. They've had their fair share of struggles so far in the FNCS, but in Game 7, another turbulent start. Hen has to do everything he can to clutch as a solo.
He's trying his best, but all he needs is one shot. There it is from Hen. Another launch pad in the inventory as well. Saw him literally by himself clutch up that last game in the previous season to win the finals. No stranger to solo clutches, but from this distance, it will be difficult. Vidil, Noah Riley on your screens, just battling Reason and Decyptos. Taking a few shots back and forth, they do end up winning that fight.
Yeah, the big thing with this team is that they obviously are known for being great fighters. And so we'll see whether that translates throughout. Manabuka, Mustache though, in a bit of trouble. Mustache actually goes down.
Malabuka's just kind of left by himself inside these boxes once again. This is due to the distance of how far people are traveling. Even the Cavern team, this is just such a far stretch in the desert. People are stuck, no pit stops, no chance to refarm. You make one little mistake, you are kind of struggling to get tags, storms are just popping, you don't want to be open. You get kind of stutter-stepped in where you want to go, and that happens exactly to Mustache and Malabuka. They trip, they fall in Game 1.
Yes, exactly why when we discussed them, I said they relatively have a good understanding, right? Because they do have struggles sometimes on these southern zones. We saw it a tiny bit yesterday. We're seeing it already here in Game 1. The distance from Cavern all the way down towards the sort of Chonkers area, if you like, is a big, big distance, and one that often puts them on the more congested side of the zone without their really having a say in where they are, right? And so they go down, but that's not going to be too bad news for some of the teams right above them and below them, right? A chance to catch up if you sit currently 4th or below. And for the two teams in 1st and 2nd, they will now realize this is a chance to extend our leads, secure our fight. Trippin'.
You just walk up, man.
Doing his best.
Just walk up.
Yeah, at that point you do, right? At that point you do. We've all experienced that at some point playing Fortnite. You just can't quite get the loot you're trying to harpoon in.
All right, now you can kind of sense it by looking at the mini-map a little bit on the bottom right of your screen. So many people in general at this moment are just stuck on that zone line. Whenever there's a zone that's kind of favorable for a few duos, you'll notice a few of them kind of splattered in the middle, in the midsection overall, but right now, that is not the case. Everyone is kind of on desperation, just survival mode. They've traveled so far. I keep mentioning this. This is not a normal zone for a lot of these players. They are just stretched to the limits. Mats, for some people, might be completely gone. I know Joe's are looking good right now. That's because he has all of Ziandes. He's a solo for the moment. His teammate, one of the big clutchers in endgame, 1v2s I've seen this man just do, is down.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Because we talked about zones playing a part in how difficult it can be for a team if they've had to travel a long distance. Of course, the southern zone is their home zone. It's a zone that they should be comfortable in. Of course, they're headed up north towards that Butterbarn area and now having their fair share of struggles. Tayson, not struggling whatsoever. A brilliant display of mechanics from the man many consider to be the greatest to ever do it.
That's going to be Joe that he picks up. That's an entire team's worth of loot because we just saw him with all of Ziandy's best loadouts in the inventory. Zone kind of pulling towards the center, so it favors a lot of people. They're going to just launch pad straight in, no risks. Not the biggest rewards, but they'll be able to get in unscathed, and that's asking for the best. That's exactly what you need to see.
Yeah, they played it safe there. There was potentially a chance for them to just run their way into the safe zone, but they didn't want to risk it. They knew there'd be teams looking in that direction. They wanted to use the pad for an extra bit of speed. And we'll see that pay off for them moving forward as they're able to get into zone with quite good materials now as well.
Right now, too, Pena going down, Aquavino. Don't want a repeat of what happened yesterday near the early games. Him and Vanya were just rolling in and doing absolutely big damage on the entire server. Andretta and Kiko here, too. Haven't seen too much from them overall on day one, but looking good so far right now.
Yeah, you can see they're 57 below, and so that's why Andretta was sort of almost over peaking, right? This big wide edit open just to try to find some sort of an opportunity to do that bit of damage. Now, though, prioritizing getting to the zone and using a lot of materials to do so as well. They were finding their way in this top, and they're looking for a fight, and they were ready for it.
Nice.
Really nice stuff there. Podesai, Snazy the ones to suffer at the hands of Andretta, and Jackson actually was able to get a finish as well from the distance.
See Artskull and T-Chips as well in the same kind of position. Why are people fighting? It's because they're down on Surge, and that lightning is striking. You can out-heal it a little bit, but the next damage will come in the next 5 seconds. It's Thomas, HD, and Tripper, and that Artskull's trying to fight. T-Chips is now down. No minis up for Artskull either. His final shot will not hit. Tripper will take him out. That's a lot of loot. A big refresh for 3 teams so far. Thomas, HD, Aqua, and Tayson, all finding bodies worth of loadouts and mats. They're all prepped up for different layers of this endgame.
Yeah, we've seen a bunch of these top teams have brilliant setups now. A launch pad being used for Thomas and Tripp, and they had the vault this game. It's why they have these pads. And now prioritizing getting that position in the zone. And it's setting up to be a huge game for some of the teams who are already pushing the boundaries in the leaderboard.
Vino Aqua, you can see that #1 on them. That's not just a team tag, that is their place overall on the leaderboard. For every single POV you see here, those numbers on the right do dictate exactly where they are in the standings. For Seti and Cammy, it's 6th overall. You can check on the bottom left as well and see that number shining. Rifty picking up Zara a little bit. Flodax back in the game. Cammy and Seti so far have just been riding the tide, just surfing along depending on what happens with the server. Looking consistent throughout the days. Maybe this is the game where they try to take control, have a voice that shouts rather than is just a part of the conversation.
The question is though, right, if you're them, do you stick to your guns, right? Do you stay true to what you know, what you're comfortable with? We know they're not a team that thrives in terms of getting loads and loads of eliminations, but it's definitely not out of the realms of possibility for them. No, Riley Vidil, we saw them finish Game 6 yesterday as the victors of the game. Are they going to walk through and have a similar type of performance? A better off-spawn situation for them, one with more clarity, and maybe that can be the stability they need. Tayson needs the stability of Chapix and his chug splashes, almost running down a Dark Alley, finding himself in some trouble, and it was at the hands of Vino and Aqua.
First versus, what, 2nd overall, just going back-to-back against each other. Vino and Aqua had a plan for this, though. Cause chaos, jump and fly. Look at everyone who's affected by this. Pink and Us, Anolexic Squeeze. Tough now in the air, losing a bit of HP. Pink and Us have to just walk the whole way, can't even hit the pad, and they're still taking lots of zone damage.
You can see Vino now looking in the backside of the zone. He knows there's people who maybe have taken a bit too long to make their decision, and so he's trying to chop down for height as well. Allows Aqua some safe passage to get back to him as well.
Right now in this dry desert, the Oasis is being with your dual partner, staying in the same builds and getting frag after frag like this. Unfortunately, Vidil's gone, so are the water and the trees for Noah Riley. Not going to be paradise for him so far, but he can cause a havoc when he gets...
See who's very angry right now. Aqua and Vino up for height. They want it. This is where they were. They spent most of yesterday in this position, and it seems like they've been given that opportunity again today.
They're so sticky when they're up here. No single duo on this entire region, nay, maybe even the entire world can stop them once they have height, have those split tarps and gain control.
It's all about what these guys below can do. Hellfire and Scram will be looking to do exactly that. You can see Hellfire leading the way. Scram the insurance in the top. Tayson, though, very, very comfortable, whether it's height, low, or mid, picking up Rabbit there. And the refresh is key as they make their way back into zone as well. It's an awkward bit of terrain to try and traverse, but they'll find their way eventually.
Hemi and Seti will also try to be mid-ground perspective. They're so high up right now. What they want to do, their kind of game plan, take a lot of these eliminations away from the high ground team. Focus on those elims from the position they're in. They're crossing a rock bridge at the top, though, down at the bottom, in the dirt. Chapix is there. Noah Riley is there too. Big 110 stopping Kinzel in his tracks. No one can stop this man. 5 elims. Last time we tuned in, he just had a mere 1, and he's looking at the slums, the bottom, the low ground right now, trying to pick apart any other team.
Yeah, he needs to be careful though, right? Because like you said, the zone's going right back up this hill. Vino in the zone, using the med mist, right, to buy him some time as he works his way in. Cammy and Seti, they are down at the bottom of this hill. Unfortunately for them, it's pulled backwards, so they won't have to make their way up. But the pullback zone will make things so much difficult. All these old builds now that these teams can work their way through. But you have to be careful at all times. It might not be your edit, it might not be your wall. And you're seeing the effects of that now. Hellfire and Scram running into territory they did not own. Rifty and Flowdak will say goodbye to them. Aqua and Vino could almost fall asleep on height, right? There's not much action for them. Everything just taking place below. As Clown and Rescard, who are in 5th place, look to battle it out against Seti and Cammy on this layer.
Every single team has a little bit of space to breathe, but now everything's starting to constrict. Just squeeze and collide. Vanya looking for it. Carmi next to him for the next shot. Turns around. Big pump. After that, another. The third one connects, and Refsguard goes down. Vanyak doing it again. A day 1 performance might just be deja vu in day 2.
He is hitting shots like never before. But can he continue to do it? We've already seen him have a crazy solo performance, and there are plenty of opportunities for him to now hit a bunch of shots again. Seti doesn't have Cammy. Cammy has gone down. The med mist dropped to his teammate, but that might have cost him. The moment he turned around, he got taken out. And so now Vino and Aqua finally starting to put their shoes on, get ready for a bit of a run as we go the distance. Trippin as a solo. Thomas is not here. What can he do?
Gonna drop down. It's a game for solos for him. Wants to avoid that duo, the final raid boss on height. Trying to focus Vanyak, but one shot missed, 1 second overuses. Big damage straight to his dome. He beats one of the mini bosses down below. Still that final mission waiting for him on high ground. 1v2 for the moment. Final 2 teams, Aqua and Vino, looking to drop down. They have to take off Trippern. This man has clutched in the past. He's flopping up with all the HP, going straight back into the zone. Look at this from Aqua and Vino. Perfect positioning. They're looking to finish this. Trippern desperately going for that med miss, maybe even going for a flank all the way up top, but Aqua sees him. A few more tags building all the way up. He might have an essence of control. Another block by Aqua. The positioning almost perfect. Vino chases him down like a hound dog. He finds his bite, and they win another game in the FNCS.
These guys continue to be ruthless. They left day 1 as the victors, top of the lobby. They start day 2 with a victory royale. And against a team in the final moments who they have been hounding down all season long. We've seen Thomas and Trippin versus Vino and Aqua all season at Command Cavern, and showing us now in the FNCS finals while they are the Command Cavern team. Game 7 is theirs.
I think Aqua was using one hand and Vino had an eye closed that whole game. It felt effortless, like they were just sleeping behind the wheel.
Yeah, literally. It does not get easier for them than that.
Yeah.
Right? Of course, the pullback zone meant that they could just sit back for a second, right? All the teams fighting it out below. But for real, they literally are now continuing to open up that gap at first place.
Yeah, that should have been a game that was very difficult for height as well overall, right? It was such a south pole. You shouldn't have that many mats to use, but all those siphons those guys got right before the moving zones, that was the key, I feel like, in that game.
Well, look, to catch us up on everything that happened in between high and low ground, we are kicking it back to the analysts.
Thank you guys so much. My goodness, game number 1. So in case you missed out on the action yesterday, in case you didn't know who was in first, that was the duel right there. They come out after first 6 games. Game 7, they're like, you know what? Victory Royale. Finals? The best 50 duels in the world? We'll do it.
I mean,
Victory Royale.
Let's be real. These guys, I was kind of concerned. I said at the top of the show, are they going to be able to continue that rampage they put on yesterday? They won 2 games back-to-back yesterday. This is the 3rd Victory Royale they've had out of 7 games. I have no concerns that these guys are going to continue this reign.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy what they're able to do when they get to the stage of endgame. What I really like about the way they play is they're very opportunistic. We saw it yesterday. The opportunity was presented to them in this game. We saw Vidil and Noah Riley up on the high ground, but unfortunately Vidil went down. So Aqua and Vino, they thought, aha, there's a high ground free there. We might have that, and we might dominate from there as they always do. Only 5 eliminations, I think it was at the end, so not an absolutely dominating win when it comes to eliminations, but what's most crucial is Vino's able to pick up eliminations and refreshes where it matters most.
Every single time. man. Every game we watched yesterday, whether Aqua was down, whether he was up, Vino was always able to get some sort of important refresh. Something. It's just like, he could just do it when he mattered it. It's like, oh, 5th zone needs something right now. I'm going to be able to do it. I could turn that aggression on. We can figure that one out. Fantastic from him, and of course, leading by Aqua as well.
I mean, right, finding those duels and saying, all your stuff is now ours. We're going to use that to fuel us, get that victory out. Really good stuff. On the other side, though, Trippin, right, he was left alone without Thomas HG, and I just wonder if Thomas was available, how this could have gone different.
I mean, realistically, probably amazingly. We've seen both these players solo clutch at some point, but when they work as a duo, it is absolutely amazing. We saw them win, I think it was game 1 yesterday, if I'm right. They did pick up a victory royale yesterday, and that was perfect. They were working together. They were side by side. But here, poor launch pad placement, well, not placement, position to land in a congested area, and of course, they ended up being punished for it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. But we can see, look at the position that Trippin's in right now. That was 20 teams remaining, was it? Unbelievable scenes. And he made his way all the way through every single blockade that was left in the game, every single player, every single challenge, every single mini-boss, to quote Shio there. And he was able to take them all down one by one, able to pick up the refreshes. And I think what's most important about the way that Trippin played this is he wasn't playing passively. He wasn't playing back. He wasn't playing a little bit more slow. He was playing aggressively. He was picking up eliminations. He was picking up refreshes. And that was what was able to keep him going for this long. And what a performance.
Oh, it was incredible. And I also love there, like, the very final at the end, he was going up against Vanyak, right? That was that 1v1 there. And Vanyak absolutely beamed him almost 100 or 200 HP with that SMG, essentially almost in one. And if it wasn't for that huge amount of damage, that could have been a much better potential for him to clutch, because he couldn't heal up all of that afterwards.
Now we have to take a look at our standings, of course. Seti and Cammy, they're moving up. Shy Away just feeling really good. But look at this lead that Bino and Aqua, and of course Tayson and Chapix have developed. We still have 5 more games. Anything can still happen, but if this continues, man, we might be looking at our winners.
I mean, this is incredible. Also, I think an important note here was the fact that Mustache and Malabuka didn't really gain many points here either. And the fact that Trippin just clutched up there has moved him up 4 places now. So now he's in 5th, and Mustache and Malabuka's 3rd place is not looking so strong anymore.
Yeah, solid performance, of course, from Refscott and Clown as well. Being able to pick up refreshes, eliminations where it matters most. But, Reese, what have you got for us?
Got a little bit of something for you here. We're going to have a little look at Tayson and Chapix's rotates from the Collider, right? What we're going to do is lay out what the arrows look like, the path they took to get down there, and then also show you why this didn't necessarily work out that much. Now, if you're remembering what the previous zone was, remember, very south. Very, very south. And now you can see the big swooping arrow going down to the south here. Now, they did a really good thing when they were in the Collider to start with. What they ended up doing was using the cannons, right? The cannons has what we've basically seen a couple of times to be one of the best ways to rotate from here on out, because you can just fire yourself into the middle of the Collider, as we're about to see here, and it'll send you in a specific direction. However, these guys have this planned. Notice where they land. Right next to a second cannon there as well. Fantastic, so that you can cannon off to another rotate. So from here on out, this looks fantastic. This looks like a great rotate, but for some reason they decided to actually try and go to the far east side of the map now to avoid a bunch of the players behind them and below them. This then got them way too deep in the zone. And as you can notice, 29 above, and this was a fully south zone at this point. So you remember, there's nowhere they can get tags here. So basically on this rotate, because they were so deep in zone, they essentially ended up draining at their launch pads, a ton of their chug splashes, and I'm not going to lie, massive clutch for them to still be able to place 10th from this rotate.
Yeah, let's be real. I mean, it's Chapix and Tayson. They were able to pick up refreshes. They were able to pick up eliminations where it mattered most. I think it was Joe that they took out, just capitalizing on the fact that he was a solo down there at the south side of the map. And it did work out for them in the end, but hopefully they can do it more.
So good. And that was just game number 1 on the day. We have game number 2 on the day on the way. Of course, this is game 8 overall, but it's that time. The battle bus is ready for us, so I'm not going to hold you here too much longer. This is game 8 of the FNCS.
I mean, Zeke, Reese, Mini, the knowledge, cannon chains, low ground claims, a few differences on the second day, but what hasn't changed is Vino and Aqua's dominance level.
Yeah, these guys clearly aren't stopping anytime soon. We're going to start getting to the point where we are sort of talking about, all right, so who's fighting for second, right? Who's fighting for third, right? Because these guys are just on an absolute roll. We talk about all-time FNCS performances. They clearly are trying to put one in here.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost untouchable by more than half the lobby. There's one team, Tayson and Chapix, that's kind of near. Seti and Cammy are getting to that island, but being this high, I feel like I'm already looking at that second place POV.
Yeah, honestly, it does start to feel that way as we head into that next game. The big question will be, can Aqua and Vino continue their dominance? Will anybody be able to finally catch them up? Who will show what they can do as we head into the last couple games of the FNCS? That remains the question.
Question for a few more games. Remember, there are big changes in pricing all the way across the board for even some of the teams that are 40th, maybe dead last and 50th right now. You can rise to the occasion, have a few more good games, change your destiny for this FNCS so far.
There is always something to play for, even if it is just pride. And at the Joneses, plenty of pride being felt for the team that wins this fight. Savid wants to be on that side of things.
No way.
Going down. It's Booback that will take him out, and Jack Pro looks like he might be following him. Hit some nice shots onto Fury, a bit of a HP trade. And the knock will come through. Doesn't seem like he'll get the finish, but prioritizing, looking to heal up. Will Booback chase him down? Booback actually will get his finish onto Savid, the Siphon coming in. And so now a fight here in the jail cells. Who will come out on top? They're in the same box now. It's just a stair separating them. And Booback wants to get rid of that distance. And he will. The elimination will go his way. Savid and Jack Pro continue their struggles. Booback and Fury celebrating as well.
We like to see it. What that is, too, is a fast fight at the Joneses. Didn't see that in the previous games at all. What I like to see is how these guys affect the rest of the lobby now. We're going to have an extra team moving in from the right side. Zone locking in. It's a completely Western zone with a little bit more of that big circle of Zone 1 inside the water. What that means for a team like Resguard is it might be time to move faster than usual. For the east side of this Fortnite Island 11, they're now put on a much faster timer.
Yeah, and that's really one of the reasons why it's good that that Joneses fight went a lot quicker than some of the ones we've seen. You can't afford to spend too much time fighting in the zone or chasing your way, and we see the effects of that. You end up spending so much of the resources you work so hard to acquire.
And right now for Usuri, and we like to call him Max Force. Not sure if he is Max Force today.
Both
Max
of
Force on
both
screen.
of them have their names, Max Force and Maxry.
Maxry, yes. Very, very true. They're doing the opposite of what we're claiming, right? Finisher, fight fast, run straight to the zone. They're going all the way down to the south. This is kind of a western, maybe towards the north as well. It's where the zone tends to pull when this first one locks in. They're kind of setting their own traps right now. They're going to be lost in the zone soon.
Well, that is definitely the case. I think they'll hope that they can close this one out quickly. They've already picked up one of these eliminations, and so just cleaning it up, making sure you get the final player. But this is one of the other sides of Surge, right? We spent a lot of game one talking about how, you know, you'll look for good positions and try and get tags when you're sitting on a hill or something. A lot of these teams will also look for these isolated fights, right, in the edges of the map. Because, you know, Axel and Yushi, they knew there's not going to be anybody near us right now. We have time to fight an actual 2v2 or 2v1 in that instance. And so they deal with their Surge that way, and then they can focus on getting into the zone.
Oh, fire in a fight of his own as well. Went crazy on all sides. Trying to see if they can just relieve this pressure right now. Scram will not be able to do it with Bills. We'll try to use bullets instead, but not sure of the vocabulary that's starting with B is going to help them at all for the moment. The Siptos Reason finally looking alive. 35th so far, at one point 50th overall. They're climbing the rankings slowly.
Mowed them down. Very interesting, right? Because one of the big things we talked about endlessly coming into the finals was, would anybody dare to trespass in the Butter Barn area? Would anybody step to the Siptos and Reason, the bosses of this area? And in this game, it doesn't quite work out. And what that means now as well for the Siptos and Reason is that they have their own whiplash, right? Something that I'm sure they will be ecstatic about, something that they probably didn't anticipate having in many games. And so we'll see if they can make great use of it in this game. Of course, one of the few vehicles that you can actually get in competitive anymore. And so in some respects, it's a huge advantage for positioning and timing. You're much quicker than everybody else who just are running on feet. But also, you stick out like a sore thumb. The only vehicle in the game, everybody decides it's their time to take shots at you once they see you. And even if just taking out your tires, right, can almost immobilize you in that sense.
No repair torch in competitive playlists, so there's no way to get those tires back either. Snazy might not have a whiplash, might not have tires, but still looking to drive through and roll over this team below him in Podesai. Looking for a few shots, not going to find many right now. They're both going to be affected a little bit by the retaliation from this basement team. Flois and Mappy looking to clap back in this fight, also on a timer. It's Edge Zone 11. You mentioned moments ago, it's really good to take isolated fights here for that Storm Surge. There's a third team coming in looking to take a bite of the pie.
Yeah, and this fight isn't as isolated, right? A lot of these teams towards the east of the map obviously congregating around this area. And Flois and Mappy feeling the effects of that now as shots are coming from all different angles inside. Snazy gets taken out. Mappy hitting big, putting the weight of the team on his shoulders and delivering. Both eliminations going to him. Siren and Nazvi will hear this fight though. And as they're one of the teams with less experience, they instantly want a third party and they will. Siren takes out Flois. Mappy now, even after hitting such huge shots, there's only so much he can do. The med miss might get him up to 100 effective HP. But will he be able to fend off against these two young, hungry players who need damage for Storm Surge? It's very unlikely. They're looking a lot stronger than he is when it comes to their HP. And they will just wipe him out. Mappy, the highs and lows of a competitive Fortnite game, was on top of the world after hitting 2, but swiftly taken out by the Orcadia duo.
That's equivalent of, here's a math lesson, a sinusoidal function. So if you wanted a lesson today, if you have an advanced functions class and you wanted a reminder of studying some notes, it's slightly advanced, but you know, it goes up and down.
Well, my maths is very limited, but I can count. And I count that this is the team in second place.
Very nice.
Yeah.
That's also very advanced. You have to know where to look. You have to know that 2 is under 1. Usually it goes 1-2, right? But in this instance, it's different.
How can they go from 2 to 1?
Pray that Vino and Aqua fall asleep at their PCs. Because I feel like a bad game from Vino and Aqua is, for half this lobby, a good one in getting them above in the boards.
Yeah, most definitely. It is really difficult, especially when you're banking on your biggest competition to start to slip up, right? Never something that you want to be in a position for. Andy and Joe will be hoping they can have a better game, right? Going down relatively early in that previous game. Clown and Grows. Clown and Grows. I'm throwing myself back to last season. Clown no longer plays with Grows. Clown is playing this season with Refscard. Grows is also in this lobby playing with Shizo. But these two in 7th place now definitely have been a dark horse team in this competition so far, and one that will continue to try and make waves in endgames. And this zone definitely is one that will benefit them getting there. Stompy and Joe, I'll be interested to see, Shayo, where they stand once Storm Surge starts to make itself a presence in the lobby, right? Of course, very isolated in the far sort of east of the map. Have they been able to do any damage to any teams? You can see, looking for an opportunity there, Jew is not connecting with any shots. There was the opportunity, and actually taking more damage than he's actually able to hand out right now.
Trippin' Thomas looking to deal that same type of damage.
That's how you do damage. That's how you deal with Storm Surge there.
He was looking like Vino with those tags.
Well, look, no, he's looking like Thomas HD. Remember?
Really?
He is that guy.
He's the OG.
He is that guy, right? In terms of, you ask top players, you ask anybody who follows the Fortnite competitive scene, who are the best aimers. Not only will you have plenty of people telling you Thomas HD is the one, you'll also have the whole country of Denmark backing him in that regard as well, coming together as one.
All the way at the top, doesn't matter what weapons are in the game or vaulted.
Another max pull towards the west.
This is trouble for the whole lobby. Watch some duos kind of moving all around the map. Let's just see what the activity looks like here with Mini Miner.
Thank you, Shy. Now, we just saw that Cammy has one of the purple striker pump shotguns. And usually we talk about how good the Cammy split loot is, but he was able to find one of the epic rarity crows that fly around the map and able to pick up some extra loot from their drop spot.
Caw-caw! It's kind of nice, you know? You look at chests, you look here and there. Sometimes you look at the skies, man.
Sometimes you do. Sometimes you never know what they can give you. And in this case, if we see him start popping off with that in the end game, we'll know exactly who it was. Shio Age himself delivering it in-game via Crow.
I am the Crow. That's the one that... People were supposed to figure it out. You know, we were leaving cryptic messages.
Well,
but here we are. Now you know what dictates the zones. Now you know what's in Benji Fishy's blood. It's Crow. Maybe not. But regardless, taking out Artur, they've been struggling a little bit, Levin. This day might be what they kind of need, a mental refresh, a reset in attacking the FNCS.
Yeah, of course. Benji, Savage, in terms of a fan base, I don't think anybody rivals them in this lobby. They probably have the most supporters, most people wanting them to do incredibly well. We'll see if the talk of a in-person event will be the motivation that they need to start getting back to top form. One of the few duos that's actually competed together as a duo in previous in-person events, right? So they have a leg up on the rest of the world right now. We'll see how long they keep that for. But they definitely need to start getting some more points on the board in this FNCS.
Chicho Trulex, I feel like, defied expectations on day number 1 in terms of how high they actually strike. I feel like they'd be middling more so than anything else, maybe even struggling with some of the teams around them. Rocky Reel's completely uncontested. Maybe had one invader on day number 1. At the same time, Tayson Chapix, you know, many talks about loadouts. Theirs looking fine, and we went over in that segment between games why they struggled so much. That zone pulled so far away, had to lose a lot of the launch pads, lose a lot of the chug splashes. Basically, the shine of Covert Command Cavern was just not there.
Yeah.
This time, though, they have the tools for destruction.
Yeah, we'll see, though, right? Because as much as the loadout looked phenomenal, they're good on Surge, healthy in that regard. They obviously were low on materials as well. Tayson at least was. But the good thing about this command cavern area is that the materials here are phenomenal. It's why a lot of the times you'll see these teams leave this area with max materials or just about that, as we have in the case of Aqua here. But this position on the blimp, this was why when the season started and there were multiple blimps all around the map, people were so ecstatic about the opportunities for Surge there, right? You sit up on a blimp and you can do exactly what Aqua's doing right now. You literally have so much vision of the rest of the lobby. Of course, now that isn't the case around the map, but it is still the case for Command Cavern. They have this available to them, and you're seeing how they can make use of it. They need to start connecting with more shots, though. You can see that tag there puts them 66 below. Another tag will help them as well. But they need to keep hitting shots. Vino is accustomed to doing that. Yesterday, Shayo, it felt like he couldn't miss at times. Is he still feeling it after waking up today?
I mean, Aqua must think so if you're just looking at the disparity of ammunition between the two.
Yeah.
He's got about 200 rounds. Aqua has about 80 sitting in case a fight breaks down, in case Raisin and Pena get bored all the way up top at the Command Cavern spot. Vino is just hitting shot after shot, influencing just the destinies of duels walking around. One of them is Vidil, yeah. I mean, I wondered who he got white tags on. How does that look? This is just going to be tough. Back in the old days when you had something lifted up to your face and shaked it, it was a rip to go. You were easy in the air, breezy. This time Vidil, all he can do is just delay with his med mist. Hopefully get informed to start running. But look at who he has to face. You got Playwell on the right, and Queasy in the business too. He's got more than just a mountain to climb.
Yeah, this is not a situation any competitor wants to be in. All these top aimers looking at you as you have minimal amounts of builds to actually work your way in, sorry.
Minimal amounts of builds and sometimes even space. Clown taken down, talked about the zone possibly influencing his timing. It's Andretta, who they were kind of jumping into the POI beforehand. Maybe taking too much space. He wins that fight. Thomas HD picking up Grolls. And Zrox and Kovacs in their own type of fight against Jackson and Vico. Usually Jackson Vico, very hard to take down, very good at initiating fights. If they start to go a little bit longer, that's where the weakness is. And very good control from Zrox to put up those walls above the pyramid. Very, very fast decision making, and it buys time for Kovacs to wrap all the way around, land that final shot, and just clean up the fights.
We'll see where this takes them, though, in the journey of having a good game. Of course, Zrox not working with much in terms of a loadout. Materials as well are absolutely shambolic, and so they'll need to start farming, but there are so many teams around them, and maybe their solution with that will just be to take another fight.
Oh, this is troublesome, though. What is the option here, Zrox? Just, yeah, go with your teammate, don't interrupt the box. 50-50, let's see if it was the right decision, because Zone is moving. Maybe go back to that cannon, use it as a way to completely fly in. That's exactly what Kiko wants to do. He's gonna be up in the air. Ju and Stomp, you have to just slide by and snowboard down this mountain.
Yeah, Drew and Stompy, they're going to have to try and look to see if they can get towards the other side of Command Cavern. They are wary of other teams and other players in and around, and that's why that team actually will use a scan, and so they'll be aware of where Stompy and Drew are. And so that makes their chances even more difficult. Refscar, though, does get taken out, and so him and Clown won't have the chance to push their way up the standings now.
DK's Bat Sniper as well during that replay going down in the feed, so a bunch of these nice mid-low ground teams not going to be there for the moment. Said he cannot say hi to Fury up top. Unfortunate. The Eagle Massive on that one? No, it's just a fly glide. Kemi said that last game set themselves up to be in a good spot. It feels like they have trouble executing that final finish.
Yeah, it's difficult, right? On all those layers, right? Especially in mid-gun in that game where there was massive changes in elevation, the bounce-back zones, having to go through old builds. The way this zone is looking to pan out, I don't think it'll be any easier for them, but it will be a different challenge and maybe one that they are more accustomed to. We often see the zone pull towards this west side. I feel like I've watched this game and this lobby play out in this way so many times this season. And this is something I'll be really happy to see play out. Malibuka Mustache now looking more likely to have a game where they actually get to play as a duo in the end game. What can Tayson and Uguay do though here?
Pick up another big refresh. This is one thing we were setting up in the previous game. The teams that get eliminations before this 4th and 5th zone locks in, they've bolstered up and used so many mats to be in these spots, to be in a position to use Surge. One big thing for an endgame checklist is to have max mats, is to be good on the heals that you have as well, and they get a full refresh of it. I'll just use that launch. They're still pushing forward with maximum aggression. Tayson does not want to stop this rain of damage, but now it's multiple teams are looking at. Their backs are towards just the zone. They're on a little bit of a timer, but just have to move forward slightly. They have 20 seconds of time and just Asvi in front of them.
I like how aggressive they're getting with things. They knew that guy was solo, and so they thought, look, we are two of the best players in the game right now. It wouldn't hurt to get the extra 3 elimination points.
Thomas HC, Tripper, and 2 launch pads on screen. A lot of people have smiles on their faces right now. They're happy. Every time I see them with this West Zone, with a game that's set up, it's 3 launch pads, by the way, between the both of them. I see them trip and fall. I think I remember Season 7 FNCS. They had this awesome bounce back in this type of zone as well, near the mountains, and they tripped up one bad decision, maybe just a little bit too comfortable with their loot. I don't want that happening right now.
Yeah, the big thing is for them is that when it comes to like an end game checklist, they are looking very strong, right? Materials potent, the storm surge dealt with, and the pads acquired. It's all about now delivering, not having any sort of hiccups, not over peaking, not messing up your edits, and making sure that they stick to what they know best.
It's holding that high ground. And I feel like one of the things is if they try to go a little bit too early, if they try to be a bit too risky, opened up in the air, like a Nas kind of was trying to catch up to Pink, had to have been off of one of the rifts that just spawn around. He'll be solo, have that pad to use, but Thompson Tripper, for anyone that's kind of controlling height and starting off high, we've seen what Aqua and Vito can do. My man Aqua, ruthless, walked up the Hen yesterday, 185 to the dome, and Hen Queasy looks so good on height level.
Yeah, look, it was a very fun high ground take. I expect to see more fun high ground takes today. It's interesting, though, that we've seen with these last 2 POVs, Pink, Anas, Trip, and Thomas, both teams that land at Command Cavern, but teams that deviated away from it and now are having to sort of return to this area. And on one side, you're seeing a team in a struggling position where Pink doesn't have Anas with him. The other, Thomas and Trippin, look a lot stronger, but the zone will be beneficial to both teams.
And for the teams that have stayed here for most of the time, haven't deviated and moved, Tayson, Uguay, I feel like these guys, if Command Cavern was a computer, if it was code, they're the malware. They're just spreading slowly throughout every single type of cave and deleting player after player, line after line, code after code.
These guys are playing their game out. This is how they like to play. Of course, this pad now will push them into zone, and it'll put them in a perfect position now as they move forward. But they realize the challenge that faces them. They know the stakes. They understand what they have to do in order to start catching up to the dominance of Aqua and Vino. But that's a challenge that they are always going to be ready to face.
That's the one thing we've seen so far throughout the day, right, is Aqua and Vino going to every other POI, going into other people's living rooms and just taking control of everything. This time, we're in their home. That being said, though, some type of rocky relationships happening. at the family reunion over at Command Cavern. Aquavino have strayed a little bit away towards one of the North Hills, and they're getting affected heavily. Aqua now down to 0 HP, taken out. All up to Vino to keep moving forward, and we've seen him clutch a couple of times. Dynamic in that cannon, but it's not going to go too far. Breaks a little bit of the metal. Nice to keep pushing in, but costed him so much. Now down to 6, 7, 5, 4 mats and no HP. The zone's not even done just yet. It's another max pull, and he's maxed out. First place down.
In a game where you would have thought the zone would have benefited them so much, a hiccup, a trip, and maybe a fall if Tayson and Uruguay can continue their line of dominance in this game. We'll see whether now that leaves some space up for high ground. We've seen how they've dominated it. They've claimed it so much better than everybody else. But in this game now, who will be the ones to step up? Thomas and Trippin in the middle of your screens might be a team to do so. Astro now is a solo, looking to try and stay in the game as long as he can. He needs to do some damage though, and a lot of it, and fast. Looking to recycle another launch pad that keeps him in the air just that bit longer. Some extra time to pick where he will land, and it's such a crucial decision to make.
Oh my goodness, gliding so far and right into another box, but he's blocked off. Marco Clinberry, don't go down easy. That's a pick. Look up in the sky though. Second place looking to take first and third right behind him. Seti, Cami, Uguay, Tayson, Hen, Chatmix, Vettel, Lotix, all in the air.
So many Titan duos, all making use of the natural rifts that spawn in this area. The map knowledge is fine, but who will be the ones to take height? It's Kinzo and Nebs holding it in the meantime, but so many great teams. They need to hit big shots to scare everybody away from it. That is their goal. Can Nebs do what he's done so many times before and hit mighty high shots?
It's raining men, but this duo is not saying hallelujah. They're gonna hit that launch pad, half it, no, it's a full one, and just completely give things up for now. Want a sense of a little bit of less chaos. The Andy is now part of the business as well. Here's Thomas HD and Trippern looking for a big glide, pumped in the skies. The Andy now fighting for height, looking to see what he can do. Building up and using a bunch of his mats, but still has a lot of them in control. Splashes to use as well. Kinzel now down to Trippern. Vettel taking out Sox as well on the feed. Uruguay taking out Kepi on his own lair. It is the Andy and Joe with control.
These guys have held on to it. We know they like to play high ground. They've not had much of an opportunity to do so. But it's these guys here on low that you need to fear. Fury, wiped out, crushed. Malabuka, Mustache, they are ready. Can they stay together though? Can they continue to clear out these players below? Janice lurking as a solo in the backside. They're going to try and sniff him out. They hear him and they will wipe him out. A big shot from Malabuka, but no, he gets taken out as well. Mustache now is a solo again. What can he do? The time's ticking. He needs to hit a big shot. He needs to stay alive. Just down to 4 builds. What can he do in this instant? Can he hit a big shot? It's going up the hill. Things are so difficult. He needs to just drop down now. That's his only real hope. He's desperately searching for something. And he picks up some extra builds that will get him up the hill. But the risk is still there. He needs to do something. Malabuka gets a knock, but it's not enough.
He is down. It'll be Trippern distracting him, taking him out. Now Cammy also struggling to get back to just a little bit of a level playing field. Z, Andy, and Joe have not made this easy for any duo down below, but for Reason and the Siptos, they're in their element. The grasslands, survival. Cammy and Seti now fighting them, but Sandwich from the top side in trouble. This rain's gonna be lethal, doing a lot of damage to both HP pools. Hen also somehow has a solo in the fray, looking for a few shots, and he takes down another. Huge for him. Clinberry gone, a big siphon that he needs. More Medvis in the inventory as well. Reason the Siptos taken out, back to just 3 teams. Seti, Cammy, can they hit that 9th zone, 8th zone revive?
You can see Seti's vying for it, but it's a time in there. It doesn't seem like it's Yandy and Joe. They're getting impatient now. They want these eliminations for themselves. They understand that they have the man advantage, and so looking to drop down. Yandy will hear the sound cues, but does he know where Seti is? Seti quickly blocking off the top as he tries to find some solace, tries to find some security. Joe just searching around Hen, trying his best. But eventually, someone's gonna have to strike. They can't all just continue to sit here and wait, cross their legs, fold their arms. Somebody has to make a move.
Seti now out of mats. Joe and Andy have stayed silent. Treating it like a 1930s movie right now. They're waiting for the suspense the narrator transition screen. Seti now down below. He's going to be the first one to fall down to the dark plot. Hen's the one to pick him up, but he's inside the zone. 34 HP down to 24. The big blocks, the edits from Joe. The big chop down towards the end. Can he find the mantle wraparound? No, now it's a reversal, but Hen's on a sliver of HP. Chopped down, blocked out. Joe and Ziandi, the south side, taking claim from a mountainous VR.
Day one was very impressive. They surprised a lot of players. Day two started with a little bit of a hiccup, but they came through the next game after and showed everybody why they are class, top class. Ran out of mats at the end, but that didn't faze them. They kept their composure and they dealt with an FNCS champion like it's easy work. Ziandi and Joe are continuing to shine in the FNCS final.
Yeah, and that was like a 10-team type of height retake. Drop from the skies, man. And it's Ziandi and Joe out of all those Titans that win at the end.
With the rifts that we were seeing at the end there, I felt like I was watching something from another chapter. I didn't even feel like chapter 3 there at times. It's been so long since you've seen rifts be used like that, but honestly, like you said, it just allowed all these different height teams to really try have their stamp on the game.
Yeah, I feel like with them, Ziandi and Joe, the more chaotic it is, right? Synapse Station, I feel like off spawn, they're better when there's 3 teams available. 5 teams fighting in the end, they're in home turf.
Yeah, honestly, look, the big question now for a lot of these guys is, if Aqua and Vino in the game, maybe it's making things more fun for these guys. Finally, we get to play on height. It's finally ours. We get a chance, because with those guys, it's been so impossible to take. But Ziandi and Joe, when they got their chance, they took it.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at what Reese, Mini, and Zeke have for us, as that game was a banger and a half.
Thank you guys so much. Game 8 does not disappoint, man. These duos, I'm telling you, this is what we live for. These moments in finals where these duos are just saying, hey, we have to pull out all the stops, man. This is finals. We have to go big. We're going home.
I mean, absolutely. A lot of those teams took an opportunity that was given to them, with the number 1 team at Vino being down, as Levin mentioned there. You know, we saw them go down relatively early, but so many top teams took advantage. We saw Tripper and Thomas HD up on height. We saw Ziandi taking advantage of that as well. Obviously, winning the game at that moment.
Of course, I mean, we're talking about Aqua and Vino here. They went down a lot earlier than they would have liked here. A little bit of a tough rotate for them, having to expend a lot of materials, and this was a hopeful moment for Vino here. He tried to use the cannon. It kind of worked out almost, but it didn't quite last long enough for him.
Yeah, not ideal. This was a shame, of course. This was a little bit of a late rotate for them. They had a max distance 5th zone, and unfortunately, this game, they didn't get into the vault, right? So they didn't get that launch pad from there. So that max distance 5th rotate, unfortunately, just kind of caught up on them. And we saw Aqua go down first, and Vino was just to follow with the whole lobby looking at him.
Yeah, big shake-up in the leaderboards there, of course, as well, which we'll get onto a little bit later on. That is a huge moment for today's event, because there's still 4 more games to go, but that's a real big shake-up.
I have a question for you guys. You talked about them at the top of the show, Cammy and Seti. How did they end up doing in this game?
Man, I mean, this is a team that we've been looking at a ton, right? Of course, through all yesterday. They started to frag out this game.
Yeah, they did. This is absolutely textbook Cammy and Seti gameplay. We saw them hopping off left, right, and center in the mid-ground layers. We saw them almost a little bit lower down right here when there's a big hill to go, and boom, the big piece control from Seti, using that purple pump shotgun, or the purple striker pump shotgun that they got from the Crow earlier on. So, you know, that could have been an influence to them popping off. But of course, Seti having to clutch as a solo yet again. We saw it in qualifier number, I believe it was qualifier 3. He was popping off, and he was just unbelievable as a solo, and proving it once again today.
Absolutely. And, you know, for me, that was almost a little bit of a choke from Cammy at that point there, because there are 2 players who usually don't overextend. They stay in their lane. Seti creates such good tarps for them, but to see Cammy kind of run out a little bit there and be knocked and go down is a bit of a shame, because that potentially cost them a second and maybe even a first.
Tough to see. Let's take a look at our standings. So, though they did fall early, they're still holding on to the number 1 spot, but look at Tayson, right? Look at Chabix, even Seti and Cammy. They are quickly catching up.
Look at that. 270 point. Thank you.
There it is. Look at that.
270 to 269. Nice. Ooh. Only 1 point between it right now.
Oh, it's intense. It is getting intense. I think Aqua and Vino going down, as much as I like them, this has made this so much more incredible and intense. I mean, look at that. Tayson and Ugwe, a.k.a. Chapix, 1 point away from the top spot. There are picked for predictions, Reese, so hopefully they can do it. But if you're Triple and Thomas right now, you're feeling good, you're confident going into this, but we're going to talk about Storm Surge.
We absolutely have to talk about Storm Surge. Look at this. Purple in the room right now. There's 2 players in particular that I want to talk to you guys about. First one, of course, how can we not talk about Thomas HD, right? In the mid-game, Thomas HD actually does over double the damage that Trippern does, right? And that's not a knock at Trippern by any means. He's a fantastic player, but Thomas HD has otherworldly levels of aim, right? Every time he just sets up in a relatively high position, you just see tag after tag after tag. There's games that they're below and then they just suddenly appear above. Similarly to Vino. Vino is the best damaged player across the entire game, right? For early, mid, and late game. I think on average he does around 900 damage a game, right? And if you just put him up in a high ground spot, Storm Surge is almost irrelevant at this point.
Yeah, it really is. It's almost one of those situations where I feel like they have a permanent thermal fish implanted into their eyes. They can just see where everyone is and pick up so many tags. Vino absolutely popping off up on there, and of course, same with Thomas.
Absolutely.
My goodness. It's crazy as well to kind of take a look at the standings. Normally we see like a team from outside the top 10, right? They're just like jumping up. Oh, they jumped to 10, 20 places. But right now, look at how small these shifts are, right?
There's nothing.
Only one. It's crazy to think this is the level of competition we have. And we've only had 2 on the day with 4 more to go. Do we think this could get a little crazier?
I mean, maybe. We haven't seen too many upsets so far, but as you mentioned, there's still 4 more games on the day to go and very, very exciting stuff to come for us, I'm sure, because it's not going to end here. It definitely won't, and the action is only just getting started, I'm sure.
You have to remember, Victory Royale is 32 points. And then you add all those eliminations at 3-point elimination. Any of those teams that are up there right now can gain, what, if they get like a 10 elimination gain, 60 points up. If they do that at the right opportunity when one of our top teams falls, man, that leaderboard's starting to change up a little bit here.
And they're also following along with the elimination, right? The elimination feed. So the moment that these teams find that moment, they're like, oh, Aquafina down. We have the moment. We have this opportunity to be free and try and strike at the top 10. So follow along with us, Fortnite fam. We have way more action ahead of us. This is game number 9 of the FNCS.
Oh, you'll be sure, Zeke, that we're following along. Right now, it's intense action. These top teams going down, specifically Vino Aqua. You know the magic sauce, the recipe for the Finals 11. They get eliminated, everyone else has a chance.
Well, it's funny, right? Because we've talked about how dominant they've been, but Chapix, Tayson really showing what they can do, really showing off why they are also a team that is considered one of the best to ever do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the way they have the knowledge of where the rifts are, the way they're catching up when there is a chance, actually landing, you know, your win condition, just getting points on the board. Hardest thing to do, regardless of just winning and whatnot, and they're doing it every single time.
Yeah, you can never count these guys out, and as we head into the next couple of games, it's going to be really close, but we like the close finishes, don't we?
Absolutely, especially when it's a first, second place battle against these 2 types of teams. They're living almost every game, Levin. It's Vino Aqua winning. Tayson Chapix trying to just keep up.
Yeah, and we'll see who will be the first to the finish line as we head right back into another game. The battle bus heading from east to west. We'll see how that impacts some of the fights we've been seeing as well. Who has priority on what landings?
For now, it'll be majority of just action in the cavern. Will some of these top 5 teams get split down? We'll go towards the orchardy types of places as well. We'll go towards Bugle for now too. Arcadia as the Siren up against Refsguard game after game. And this time it will be them here not fighting Flois and Mappy.
Well, considering how they've sort of contested each other in so many games, based off of just the placements of both teams alone, there's definitely one team that you'd give the upper hand to, right? It would be Clown and Refsguard. But that doesn't mean it's a guarantee that every game goes their way, and we're seeing that now where they have to be careful about how they traverse. Refsguard opting to go for the bush strat, keep himself inconspicuous.
I'm wondering right now too, since we're in game 9 out of 12, yeah, there it is. There's some of the irregularity. Just saw it in the feed. Oogway Tayson up against another complete different team, just taking them out. Look at the Kryptonite overall for the Arcadia duo. It's all about these bush strats. This is the 2nd or 3rd time I've seen, maybe 4th time overall, combining both days of games, them not be able to deal with a team in a bush.
Is that the hidden weapon?
Yeah.
The difference between them being an FNCS winning duo or not, the ability to handle bushes.
The bush strats. I mean, you know, your first FNCS coming in might not be used to having a team such as Refsguard and Clown contest you, might not be used to some of the tactics. This could be a very basic one they have to overcome.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that maybe doesn't get talked about enough, right? In terms of Asvi and Siren, this is their first FNCS final. It's a big stage to hop onto, especially if you're contesting against two players who are very well versed in this department. Clown maybe not having as much experience, but definitely in the short amount of time he spent in the FNCS has shined. And so you can see Siren now being forced backwards. This isn't a fight that they would have wanted to have on a consistent basis, but you can't always control what you can and can't get in the FNCS, unless you are Uguay and Tayson. They seem to never be truly contested, right? They just always have that respect season to season, especially Tayson, I feel like, right?
Yeah. You know, he gets to also dictate what it looks like when it comes to who he duels with. Some of these content pieces we have, you ask people, you know, pick a duel partner, who's it going to be? Tayson. Season after season, man.
Even considering like he had what by his standards would be a down season.
Yeah.
Last season by his standards was a down season, but yeah, that respect still remains.
You know what a down season for him is? Not winning.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Imagine that.
Imagine that being the standard. Crazy amounts of pressure, but that's something that I know he very much took personally. He wants to be revered as the best and respected as that as well, and this season an FNCS win is all he wants. That's all he wants right now, and I know him and Uguay will be very confident that they can do that, and they are not too far away from it as well. Vino and Aqua down in the feed to Pink and a Nas. And so just as we say an FNCS win could be on the horizon for Uguay and Tayson, it seems like that might just be more of a reality than we thought.
I mean, for Zandy and Joe as well, Reese Mini Zeke mentioned it. One good game, 60 points. That's how far away these guys are from Tayson and Uguay. That's how far most of the top 10 is as well. And that's been opened up. There might be big changes after this one. Need to see that fight at some point as well. Right now, we're tuned in with Zandy and Joe, previous game winners. It feels like there's been a curse in EU as well. Every time you win a game, next one, off spawn, you're gone. Unless you're Vino Aqua, then you have the back-to-backs. But for everyone else.
For everyone else. Yeah. For anyone that's somewhat human, there is that potential. But for every team now, another instance. We saw how crazy that game got because they went down and they left that space open.
Here it is right now. They have the key card as well. This might have been a great game sliding through the wall. The timing there from Pink, just beautiful.
Really nice stuff from those guys. A team that definitely wants to have a better day too. And taking out the current leaders of the lobby is a brilliant way to do that. I'm sure the vibes are wonderful in their core right now. But I don't know if we can say the same for Vino and Aqua. Even with how dominant they've been in the FNCS up to this point, we've constantly discussed some of the chemistry issues they've had, the never-ending arguments that they've had. If anybody doesn't know, they're both great players. They both play well together, but you'd be surprised. They're not necessarily the biggest fans of each other a lot of the time, and sometimes that can get in the way.
That's one weakness. So, like, let's look at their strengths right now, right? Aqua, it's about these late-game calls, the way he can finesse different layers and builds. The king of height sometimes, right? That's what people like to call him. Vino, the man who never misses with a weapon. Just the EU beast. Some would say the best aimer in the Lance. You put up Thomas HD so far in this FNCS. I've seen Vino with these burst AR shots hit every single one. Like, usually you hit half of the shots within the burst. He hits people 300 meters of range. How do you counter both those things? It's the early game. Vino doesn't have a weapon. Aqua can't do these crazy types of cerebral, patient, waiting calls. So we saw that happen in the qual sometimes. How Vino and Aqua were stopped wasn't really in the end game. It might have been maybe some overtakes on height, but they were stopped off spawn multiple times, 50-50 over at the slurp truck. And then once again, you just look at them right now, stopped off spawn. The only times they've been interrupted in this FNCS.
Yeah, and that might be the only thing that can really get to them, right? And so now for the rest of the teams, you just have to take advantage of that. If you are Malibuka Mustache, they did start to slip a bit in the standings. We're sitting at third, dropped to fifth, now in fourth. And they are uncontested towards the blimp side, and Pink and Nas will be well occupied with the vault, I'm sure, so they'll have a bit of space to maneuver around. But we saw all the teams that were doing so well at the end of yesterday are teams that had very consistent mid and early games. and of course had the pop-off potential in endgame as well, right? You have to be complete in all 3 phases of the game. You can't just be, you know, a strong off-spawn team, but you don't know how to play mid or late. You can't have a really good mid-game strategy, but low ground endgame, and you start fumbling, you start shaking, you know, your mouth, you're slipping out of your hand, right? You have to be top in all aspects of the game. And so if somebody can put a foil in your armor and sort of stop you in one of those phases, it makes your chances of being able to dominate much more difficult.
Right now, that early phase to mid, the Sipdos and Reason having lots of trouble. It started with Trulex and Chicho. It's continuing with them right now as well.
And look at the contrast there, right? Last game, we saw them take out Hellfire and Scram, and they had the Whiplash vehicle. They were able to get to endgame, play deep into that game.
Whoa!
This time round, though, they don't have that, and they go down, down, down. Trulex and Chicho might be following them, though, if they're not careful.
Cannon landing, just body shot completely. Like, not getting hit in the body, but a body coming in and doing damage equivalent to a shot. Benji Fishy cannonballing in. Trulex surprised by that. Combine that with a striker pump shot and a spray, they get taken out and out of the way.
It'll be interesting to see how Benji and Savage do with this zone. One of the zones that they thrived in when they qualified for the FNCS finals. And not a bad start to this game as well.
They start to run a little bit. For them, I just feel like doesn't matter what the zone is, getting to a good spot in it, getting a good foothold, a nice base setup and rolling has been the trickiest part for them. In rotation is where they get tagged up a lot and slowed down.
Yeah, I think the big thing for them is that they're a team where, you know, if you can get Mr. Savage and Benji to an end game, they have that potential to pop off.
Absolutely.
If you can get them there, they will hit prime, you know, season X type form, right?
Front side, low ground,
yeah,
untouched.
Popping off, right? But it's about getting there. And so they have to make sure they secure things in the early game. Of course, there were some hiccups with that yesterday, switching drop slots, going back to Tilted after landing over towards the Collider for a bit. And then the mid game is where they've really had their struggles. So we'll see how that plays out as we go on.
It's positionally for them a little bit. It's also been sometimes, rarely, tags and surge. And if you're unfamiliar with that entire concept, Soam Surge, want to be dealing damage or you get dealt damage. Stay active, look at other teams. We mentioned tags. That might be a new term for you as well. That's literally just the, you know, a shot hitting someone else's body. The number that pops up. That's tag overall you're looking for. That's what every player is trying to do to someone else for the moment in the mid game. Getting specific with it as well. We never really dived this deep. I mean, Levin specifically, but 70 players is the threshold we're looking at. There's 88 up right now. By the end of that third zone kind of appearing, that's where the lobby kind of wants to be. If it's over that, that's when Storm Surge really starts to strike. Melody and Kefi might not make it there right now. Rifle and Marine are on their heels. Both these teams looking outside into the top 10. This fight very important in getting there. Once again, one of the teams that's been winning, you know, a third of the games in EU so far is down. They have a chance to make one of these end games and possibly not have to deal with them off that top spot. Marine, though, just absolutely slapped in the face, pushed back, and now Kefi knows it's a 1v1. He's going to be pushing these walls, does not want to give Rifle the 10 seconds to be able to get Marine back up. Going to be looking at his threshold for the moment. It will update. It's not 259 below just yet. There he is, 451 above. He doesn't need this fight completely, but understands he's at a very good spot, at an advantage, in an isolated place. Knows that Rifle is weaker too. But look at what Rifle is doing, pushing further and further back in the builds, buying as much space as possible. Oh my God, Kefi just has the sixth sense.
What a shot. He was ready and waiting. The reactions there were absolutely inhumane. And yeah, needed to make sure he closed out that fight. Of course, he knew he had the knock. And so it was essential that he got the points for that, and winning his 1v1 is huge.
Okay, Joe. Big damage tags. Also, the most important thing here is buying him room on the backside. Teams will have to heal up, take a second, recuperate. Andy and Joe can just keep running the entire time. Launchpad in play as well. The ammunition doesn't look the best, so they have to make the most out of all the tags that they can get. Still looking in the backside for a few shots. Not finding many. Another mat investment comes in. Meanwhile, Axe Force Usefree, they have their own fight on the other side of the map. They jump into the fortress. We'll have to look for a way out super fast. Kidvo's fighting in here, though, with Janice. So they're about to interrupt. They're like, hey, we want to have a little bit of a piece of this conversation. Still moving fast.
The cleanup crew is here. Joe and Ziandi pouncing on this opportunity. Look at them constantly just trying to get their way, and Kidvo will hold on. But eventually, you have to secede to the fact that Joe and Ziandi want him out of this lobby, and they will send him right out of the way.
Now they'll have to just try to break out of the fortress completely, get ahead of this zone. It's still ticking for nominal damage. Now it might upgrade a little bit. Nevs and Kinzel, I mean, landed on before, I think by the entire upper echelon of EU. Kinzel held on a bit longer than Nebs, but immediately was just taken out.
Yeah, these guys obviously were almost a surprise qualification, right? Had struggled in the qualifiers leading up to the FNCS, snuck their way into round 4 of qualifier 3, and absolutely rolled through the session. And that's why they're here. Sitting in 17th place right now isn't too shabby based off of how the rest of their season went. But again, we've seen them in good positions with opportunities to rise. They just haven't been able to be clinical enough in those moments. Like you said last game, everybody wanted to land on them on height and they couldn't hold off. And they might get another chance like that. Krusty and Relvis, a team who we saw again dominate in their qualifying round. It was the first qualifier, shocked the world. Back then though, they had vehicles that they could use to make their way around the lobby and make sure they were good on Surge. In that qualifier, we never saw them struggle with Surge whatsoever. Whereas here, barely above, struggling in terms of HP because they've tried to out-heal it. And so we're seeing the difference for a team who once had vehicles to guide them through the game. Now that they don't have that, you can see the struggle, the pain.
Who's the one player who's still in trouble? The one duo right above the 70 mark. That's kind of just in the absolute trenches. Endelex, Squeeze. We'll get a few more tags to push them up. That we'll get the other side, Relvis and Krusty possibly down. And this is also just like a very ebb and flow, flip of the coin type duo, I feel like. Sometimes in top form in a few games, others down off spawn or just horrible Surge issues.
The biggest trend for Andelex and its Swedes is that they are a team that typically, historically, has always performed better on day 2 than day 1. I know Reese had a snazzy little stat about it. I can't speak English right now. It's so intense in the lobby about how, on average, they perform 5 placements better in the standings on day 2 than day 1.
Really?
Right? So if they finish 14th on a day 1, they're likely to finish on average 9th on the day 2, right? So we'll see if that can carry on today, that trend that was such a prominent storyline around them last year and last season. And they'll certainly want to do that because day 1 did not go their way whatsoever. But still time for redemption. Siren and Asvi going down. Cookie and Leon Flares on our screen. A team who haven't quite had the success they've had in previous weeks. Way down there in the standings. Trying their best to stay in this game.
Chase and Uguay also trying their best. They're in a little bit of a traffic jam way deep in the storm. 2 tick right now. Need to land all these shots and they do, but Nyan still within the boxes way deep and far back. That zone starting to tick for 5 now as it locks in. The Chunk Splash is only really buying you about 4 seconds of time, and Nyan will push them to their maximum limit. Uguay losing his life. I thought it was just his shield, but he gets knocked over here, and they're so far away from the zone. Meanwhile, on the other sides, Cammy steady. A few tags here and there. Big damage from Cammy. What else is he going to find? Ooh. Elimination way in the air. Okay. That's exactly, I think, reason to the Siptos when they were trying to fly away.
Is he done? I don't think he's done. Ooh, I like that from Cammy. Always staying alert. We talked about just being on point, always looking for opportunities where you can deal damage. And picking up some elimination points is huge. This is a team that isn't accustomed to having high elimination games, but a great foundation for that now.
And the foundation shaken up for the entire server. There were 2 teams side by side, 270 and 269 points in going into this game. Uguay now down, Tayson shaken, and in 32nd place, he's not near that prime time placement. The top 25 is what he wants to survive to and then keep living a little bit towards the end game. But that comes in all the way towards the late zones. Is this the fourth right now? And Nebs and Kinzel, they're diving straight possibly into the box that Tayson's trying to survive in. Yep, it's right there. Looking for this Elam, they know it's a 1v2.
The question is, Shido, are there any other players that you trust to do well in the solo? Maybe up against Nebs and Kinzel, things become a bit more awkward, but they will use their pad and get to zone. They realize that that is the priority right now. But Tayson, like you said, has such a journey to make, doesn't have a launch pad, doesn't have much in the way of HP either. But maybe the materials will be the saving grace as teams do start to look at him. He needs to start building though if that happens, and has time to use some shields. But you're already seeing how difficult this game will be for Tayson.
In first place right now, just by surviving and getting a few of the placements and one team's full elimination to wipe out this game. They push themselves forward, but can they keep that first place island just closed off for the rest of the lobby? Can Tayson live? Nope. The throne room for EU is open for tourists.
This is gonna be a fun endgame. Our top two teams taken out before they can really have a say on the lobby. And that opening is just what teams need to push themselves up, to give themselves that bit of motivation now.
Even the AD in the box from Ziandi, it feels like he's now alive, like he understands the stakes of the lobby have slightly changed. Off of a win previously, and Joe moving into the zone, I think, was taken down by Belusi at one point. Now he's back. They're looking good so far. They actually have one of the curses not active for them. A lot of the time, it's a max pull that Ziandi and Joe have to try to survive. Just like the previous game, they pull a little bit of that zone, have a 1v2 to fight as well. That refresh could be huge. Meanwhile, Mustache, Malabuka, Reese mentioned it, or actually it was Zeke that mentioned it in the segment between games. There haven't been too many crazy Delta changes, just kind of within the top 5. And Malabuka and Mustache, they've been one of them, just bouncing up and down.
And some could argue that they've gotten a bit quiet early on today, right? And so this is the time for them to get loud and show everybody why they're revered as one of the best mid-ground teams.
And what do you need for mid-ground? What is kind of that checklist? Mats, positioning, they pull the half and half, they're ready to go. This might just be their game. For the rest of the server, they have to buy a ticket in. Ref's Guard and Clown up in the air, landing on snowy shores. Will they have a little bit of peace and quiet in this so-called temporary paradise is the question. On Ziandi and Joe's walls, Ref's Guard looking for something. Zero Elams on both sides. They might just be down on Surge in general for the next zone that's coming up. They might be down on Mats overall. That's exactly what it is. Even ammunition lowering in both AR and that striker shotgun. Clown and Ref's Guard desperately need a refresh.
Yeah, you can see doing everything he can there to try to claim some edits. I don't know if that's the door you want to be knocking on though when it's Joe and Ziandi. We know how hard they can hit when it's needed.
Ziandi taken down by Belusi, so the way they were moving is being surveyed by many players.
Joe as a solo now. That makes everything so much more difficult. You can see Anas and Pink up above after they had a terrific start to this game. Will they be the ones to step up now and take high ground?
Ref's Guard and Clown also moving the same way Ziandi and Joe did. There's about 10 teams watching this. 158 before he goes down. Ref's Guard does not fall without a fight. Might just be a 1v2 because that's Endelex, who we know was weak before, that took him out and traded lives with him basically. Not kind of maybe, they're not really. Double shots on that side. It's Hen and Queasy now who have high ground.
We've talked about dominant high ground teams all day today, and somehow these guys have managed to slip by the tongue. But no, this could be their time to do it. Holding it early, but they're not going to be much competition for it in way of elite height teams. 500 above as well. Can we see Hen and Queasy put on a masterclass?
They'll have temporary time to beat high ground kings for now. The zone moving over to mountains, so suddenly everyone will be pushed up towards the skies. Teaches some art skill taken down. The shields are gone. Pink and Anas also moving straight towards the front side of the zone. They're waiting for the next one to prop up. They're waiting to take that natural low ground. Meanwhile, Joe, we saw Ziandi go down. He's still moving in. 223 points. He has a chance to really roll all the way up. No match though, and he's deleted, stopped and taken down.
Queasy and Hen now padding in the backside of the zone. They want to claim the front. There isn't anybody really in the air that can contest it. And so this might be the chance for them to keep it whole with Judo as a solo in the back of the zone. He's found a launch pad and he's got some white HP that he can use to give him some time. And now needs to glide in, cutting it really, really close. But the battle for height will continue. I don't think he's going to be a player in that. It's actually going to be Queasy and Hen taking shots at him and they force him down.
We see Hen now taking over. Jackson behind him. Not going to have the HP to actually contest. Who are the people that can really stretch towards height? I don't see many right now. Thomas and Trippin all the way towards the front side. They're going to be controlling middle. Pink, though, moving up second height with an Oster, looking at something, but Nebs and Kinzel do not want to give it to them for free. Hellfire taking out Kovacs, pulled aside, deleting Seti. So Cammy's left by himself, but Juice chasing him down.
You can see Ju is going to start running into a lot of boxes that aren't his if he's not careful. Cammy might have to do the same as well. Just 5 builds remaining. Scram, a squeeze going down. Trippin and Thomas are still up in this one, and Cammy will hope to try and avoid those guys. 4 builds remaining, just lurking in the back of the zone, trying to find anybody as scuffed as him.
It's a battle of mid-ground control. There's a labyrinth of builds with every single duo not wanting to go for height. There's no room to survive. You have to solve puzzles, build, shoot, and just try to do something for points. Stay alive at the same time. No match for Hellfire. He loses his eyes inside this maze and now has no idea where to go.
Ju, this is a puzzle he can't piece together. He's running into boxes that he has no control over. He needs to try find some space, some time if he can. There are players below him, but he's just going to hope that they can't see him or hear him. He needs to use the med miss as well, but it's run out. He's running low on time. Can he make his way in? He's struggling. He's hustling. He's fighting. Can he hit that shot? No.
He is taken down. Meanwhile, Thomas, Tripper, and Clash with Pink and Anas, they just trade lives completely. I think Tripper now is taken down by Anas. He's the last one just left out of that duo. It'll be Thomas now looking for that clutch.
Loot falling from the sky doesn't going to be something that he can go and take into a box, but it's not going to be the play he wanted. Thomas now dropping down, doing a similar thing. Where's he gonna go? He's running out of space. He's running out of time. He'll be sent back to the lobby.
Chaos and calamity in the mid-ground, but look at the tranquility all the way on height. Snow falls and it's cold for everyone else down here. Mustache, ice in his veins, but this time he freezes over down inside that zone. Hen and Queasy turning up the heat and making sure no one has a chance to make this end game. The ground beneath their feet, everyone has nothing, no footholds to hold on to. Hydro deleted by the storm. The navigation, it's just going completely awry. We're inside places where GPSs don't work, where there's no way home. Snazy now, the last person left. Can he stop the tyrants on height, the people who want to climb back? Hen and Queasy will take the game, the victory royale.
A masterclass on height from the reigning FNCS champions. They're showing us really what they still have the ability to do when called upon. When there was nobody really there to step up and take height, they were the ones to step up, put their foot down, stamp down on the lobby, and making things so awkward for Snazy below. A brilliant display of dominance from a team who has lacked it so far.
Absolutely crucial in this game as well, where the top 2 teams are down. Who would have thought it's Hen and Queasy, who are not in the top 10, rising up to the occasion?
I think a lot of people might have been thinking, look, if Aqua isn't here, right? If the likes of Vino aren't here, if Tayson, Uruguay aren't here, who will step up? Hen, Queasy, the names that come to mind as dominant high ground players. We know how much they like to be on those layers. They've been restricted. They've not been allowed to. But finally, when they get their chance, they win a game.
Hey, we must have forgot about Hen and Queasy, but we can't forget about what's coming up next. More big games. For now, though, Zeke, Reese, Mini, they're going to have a lot to say about this one.
Thank you guys so much. Fantastic as always. Hen and Queasy coming in. I'm telling you, I said it at the end of yesterday. Today, they would come online. They would bring it all back. And they pulled through.
They did, and I'm so happy for them. I love this duo, and I think it was Hen on social media earlier was saying that he needed and they needed a big day today. And oh boy, are they turning up. We saw Hen in the last game solo clutching, trying to scramble as many points as possible, and now they're doing it in traditional fashion all the way up on high ground.
I mean, after the end of day 1, so that was 6 of the 12 games during the whole weekend, they were in 41st. All, like, you know, you're basically last at that moment. Now, after this, I saw them move up to 15th.
Wow.
Right? So, day number 2 for them has been amazing. The play that we just saw here was fantastic too. Do you see the double dip of the pad? They went back onto that launch pad. They took around 20 white HP each. But it's worth that extra time in the air. That probably saved them like 50 builds.
Yeah, so worth it. These guys are so experienced up on the high ground. They know exactly how to play. Of course, Queasy leading the way. Hen looking back for as many eliminations and refreshes as possible. And of course, this is the halfway point of today. It's a 3/4 point throughout the whole event, but the halfway point today, there's still potential for these guys to pop off. There's still potential for them to climb the leaderboards even more.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
I'm thinking what you're thinking.
Is this going to be a top 10 for Queasy and Hen?
I hope so. I like the rhyming there as well.
It was
Top 10.
definitely intentional.
Oh, of course, it always
100%
is.
100% intentional.
But Hen popping off, I'm sure Shy will be able
Do you
to do a
believe?
good job.
I believe. They're my prediction.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
told
But you better believe.
That's right. I have no choice but to believe. And I will believe in them, of course. Now we got to talk through kind of what the Cash alluded to was the top 10 all kind of fell super early in this game, which just let everyone else kind of rise up.
I think what's really important is, of course, it was the top twos. We saw a bunch fall, but the most important, the most impactful was Vino and Aqua, and of course, Thomas and Chapix. Thomas. Chapix. I'm just mixing all the best players together. Tayson and Chapix. There we go.
Yeah.
That fell super early there, which is really surprising because these two teams throughout yesterday had such a solid mid-game. Both of them only went down in one mid-game each. So to see them be a little bit more shaky today is going to open up the kind of for every other team in the leaderboards.
Yeah, the barn door was wide open right there. And for Cammy and Seti, that was a really, really important game for them to pop off. They couldn't quite make it happen. But Zeke, this is looking good so far.
Yeah, and we have to kind of remind you guys at home, this is the halfway point of just today, right? We have 12 games total, right? So technically 3 quarters, but halfway point today. Just bear with us. Okay, right now, with 3 games left to go, how are we seeing this kind of all shape up?
I mean, for me right now, I'm seeing a 3-horse race. Tayson, Chapix, Vino, Aqua, Seti, Cammy, all in the top 3 with only 16 points between them. That is incredibly tense with 3 more games left. If all of these teams don't play out basically some of their best Fortnite, one of these other 3 teams will. Someone is going to be overtaking them.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And what I think about this top 3, what we're seeing here is a really, really great combination of eliminations and placement. I want to highlight these 2 teams here, Mustache Malibuka and Joe and Zed Andy. Of course, 2 duos that have more eliminations than the top 3 duos themselves, but they're not able to combine that with the placement. Of course, Zandy and Joe being able to pick up the victory route, but not able to combine it with the placements and be consistent enough to get into the top 3, as we're seeing Tayson, Chapix, Vino, Aqua, and Seti and Cammy. I have to remind myself there because they're switching up, they're going crazy. But no, they're not able to get to that level of consistency yet. But as we mentioned, there's still 3 more games to go. I'm very excited to see how this finishes.
I think importantly to note here, though, is that those teams that you've mentioned, Tripper, Mustache, Joe, and Ju down all the way underneath, can easily pop off again. Like I said, 1 win for these guys will put them up into like 3rd place, assuming those guys up top don't do good as well.
I mean, especially kind of what happened before. We were seeing a lot of these teams only shift up a couple points, right? And I'm so thankful you guys have swapped over because remember, even jumping up in a top 10, remember, that's $20,000 for the duo, right? So even if they're not saying, well, you know, 20th can't make first, well, hey, jumping up to 10th is still a massive difference. So talk to me about page number 2. What expectations we have?
I mean, firstly, we talked about it before. Hen and Queasy as well, moving up 9 places in that one game. But again, remember how many they've moved up this day in those last 3 games from 41st. They are clearly playing significantly better today, right? Other teams on top of that, Belusi, Hyjo, Marco, Clinbury at the bottom, also moving up over 10 positions. What you're looking at the teams here is any of them have the potential to pop off and get into a top 10. Like you mentioned, that's thousands and thousands of dollars more after the end of game 12 today.
Yeah, all it takes is 1 big pop-off game. We see it there with Hen and Queasy. 1 game is all it could take for these teams to really boost their way up, maybe into the top 10, but as you mentioned, Zeke, it is all about getting into that top 20, of course, top 15. The prizes keep going up and up.
My goodness. And just to think, like, so for you guys at home, follow along with this, right? You watch that bottom left, see the placement of the teams, and as they go down, this is just going to give other duos opportunities. I love here, Hen and Queasy, they had this opportunity because of the top 2 going down, and I start to wonder, like, if this top 10 does that same thing again, even 1 more time, how much closer this will be going into Game 6.
I mean, that's going to be scary because Tripper and Thomas and Mustache and Malibuka will probably be the ones who will take out Vino and Aqua. Let's be real. It's probably going to be one of those teams who does it, which means that they're already got the elimination points, and chances are they're going to have the great loot from that drop spot as well. So the chances of them taking height with that opportunity being free on top of that, that's a top 3 almost guaranteed.
Yeah, because you're not only just taking out the team, you're also taking out, you're getting the elimination points, you're taking out a threat potentially in the end game as well. We talk about a lot of teams that are the high ground type of players. They're going to command caverns. So if you're one of these teams that are maybe just outside the top 3, maybe Thomas and Trippen, for example, they might look to be a little bit more aggressive and be on the front foot earlier on because they're taking out a lot of the high ground teams that could get in their way later on.
Oh my gosh, you guys are setting this up perfectly, man. The hype is so real as we have 3 games left to go before we know who the new duo champions could be. Could Hen and Queasy just look to defend that title? Could they jump from 15th to 1st? Or will someone else look to dethrone? I'm looking at you, Aqua and Vino. But for right now, I'm looking at our casters because this is next game of the FNCS.
We are back with game number 10 of the FNCS finals. The stakes are being set. It's a much closer race than we thought it would be coming into today. And that just makes it so much more exciting for you at home and for us as well, Shai.
Yeah, sounds terrible. Every time I see these top 2 teams go down, I get animated and excited. It makes the stakes that much closer for everyone else.
I'll be real. I don't want to be a hater. I don't want to sound like a hater. But the games do get real intense when some of these top teams go down because it just provides the opportunity for the teams lower down to step in and join that race. And as much as I like 2-horse races, I'm also a fan of 6-horse races and 8-horse races and 10 of all the horses getting involved. And I'm a fan, so we'll see if that trend continues. I'm sure for Aqua, Vino, Taste and Chapix, that won't be what they want. They'll want to stay in the game and stay in it as long as humanly possible.
We'll tune into Command Stable now. We can rename it for all the big horses. It's anything but stable in there every single game. Andy, Joe, Kidwo, Flixie. Look at the care now that Andy has. Joe rat-a-tatted as he drops off spawn. These guys want to just survive a little bit. Look at the 2 different stakes. 40th versus 6th overall.
Well, look, we talk about things being stable. This fight has been very stable for them. Outside of that first game in day 1, they have just been on an absolute tear here. It's not been much of a problem whatsoever.
I think that absolute might be a word too big for this type of tear because it takes a lot of time for them to actually get rid of this fight sometimes. It's not going to be completely free every single time. Timing is a big thing for Zandy. Timing and landing is a big thing for Mustache and Malabuka. I'm getting anxiety seeing exactly who's going to win off of spawn right here. Pink down. Anas next. Malabuka time. It's going to be free for them off spawn.
Malabuka time. I like that. I'm down for all the Malabuka time. He can have all my time if he'd like. 2 huge eliminations off spawn. Pink and Anas were the ones to take down Vino and Aqua. And so those 2 will be happy to see them go down. But for Malabuka and Mustache, 2 eliminations off spawn, that will be the catalyst to seeing them potentially go all the way through deep into this game. And hopefully a pop-off for them, not too far away. Falling out of that race, but still never too far, especially with a format that points towards elimination. Speaking of eliminations, Cammy and Setu on our screen, not usually associated with getting many eliminations. They're not falling too far behind the top 2 teams.
Seti and Cammy.
Hey.
Seti and Cammy. I'm excited. Yeah, you mentioned that. You bring it up. We'll get back to it in just a second. I want to mention Asvi and Refsguard. What's happening on screen here is getting actually close and personal. This is the change overall when it comes to just, you know, impatience, stakes just rising all the way towards the end of the day. 3 more games kind of left to play. 10, 11, and 12. Connor Refsguard like to keep it very distant. This time, it'll be close and personal for Orcadia versus the Falcon Bifrost duo. They'll be pushing in a 1v1 on both sides. Should end very, very soon. Clown knows it's a 1v1. He should know the damage he's put down as well. Nothing really rocking, so they'll disengage for now. You mentioned Seti and Kemi specifically, Levin. I don't know where they've come from. It's just the consistency. I knew in the past when we were doing predictions, I knew in the past when we were, you know, talking shop with each other, I expected this to happen, yet I'm still surprised that they're just 16 points away from first.
I've never seen this guy so excited, by the way. This guy is so excited to see his team doing well, and I feel for you. I'm backing you here. If Malabuka and Mustache can't be the ones to win, I'm backing you.
This is why, though, right? Because you and Reese got to go to media day. You and Reese go to lunch together every day. You and Reese sleep in the same bed, right?
Sometimes.
I can be with you and Reese now, and Minnie as well. He's there on the Tayson train.
Of course, understandable.
I just want to be.
You just want to be a part of the crew.
Yeah.
I don't blame you, buddy. I don't blame you. Look, it's a fun crew to be a part of.
Zeke's almost there too. Hen and Queasy, they're somewhere. They're catching up. Mappy Flois, Coney Crossroads, talking about timing and stakes kind of clashing. Just saw it with the Arcadia duo versus Refsguard and Clown. Things tend to snap fast. This entire process, the 12 games, like a rubber band. They stretch real far, stretch too far though, get too tense, and things just break. Snap back on both sides. There's casualties all around. It stings. It hurts. And that snapback hasn't happened at Coney Crossroads. It hasn't really just broken. Over here at the Joneses, same kind of situation. It's patience. I don't think, Levin, this lasts for the next 2 games.
Yeah, if you allow things to stretch too far, it stops you from really being able to command the area, and that's where things always get edgy for these teams. Bubak, we've seen him in this fight so many times, and I've seen him on the winning side a lot of the time, but like we said in previous games, nothing is a guarantee. They almost taken out the NPC there, I think. For a moment, they got panicked.
Dialed in.
Yeah, they are way too dialed in there.
You ever calm damage on the NPC? It's I hit him for 100, 200, 300. How am I hitting for 300?
I'm sure they calmed it. I am sure they calmed it. 100, 200.
Oh man, Bubak also stole damage from a third party. This is where things might start to change as well. We saw after like the 3rd game of the day, people starting to do different things. The Jones is getting invaded from one of the sides. Bubak and Fury now on a different timer, on a different type of pressure. They were the ones in a very good pinch. Now, due to Rabbit and Fenyayan, they're in the middle of a sandwich.
Saved. Yapko. Will this be the time for redemption?
I mean, it might be, but they're stuck. 89 points. They're kind of in a very similar position of Hen and Queasy in terms of where they are in the game right now, but nothing going on for them yet. They're not that close to getting all the way towards the top spot, and that VR have to make it off the spawn. Fury finally going down, save it. It's gonna be
Max 3 trying to get in. Look at the boys, they're rolling through. We all know this feeling when a team just won't give you that space, that time. Favorite just running through all these old builds, trying to edit his way around, but when these two are on your wall, it's not easy.
It's not even done yet. This is a party at the Joneses. Every single Jonesy is here. Darkus and Zara in the business. They've left the islands. Fenyayan's still just, I think they're watching. They bought front row tickets. They're not participating. They're just cheering from the sidelines.
The big thing is though, right? A lot of these teams are teams who have been struggling. A lot of them have been struggling with Surge. If you see the names in the feed, if you know these teams are fighting, you see it from a distance, you realize, look, let's third party, let's get involved. That's why we're seeing it look like a creative map right now, creative PvP fight going on. You don't want to be taking out the AI, that's not your main opponent, but sometimes you do have to sort them out, sit them down. The NPCs can get a bit leery, a bit too big for their boots, but Zara and Darkies, like you said, very much a team that wanted to try to capitalize on the fight, realizing though that things have slowed down, and so they will retreat themselves. They don't want to mess themselves up.
Yeah, and over here is the Andy Joe. Talk about them trying to play patient. On the other side, the desperation from 40th place, from the bottom of the board. Kid One Flixie, they took them out, and now a different type of like medium pressure. Reason and the Siptos. Not completely out of the top 10. Nice trap laid down way above the attic. They're sitting in their own little tower. Gonna see if they can find the time to take this fight. Type of characteristic miss from Reason, but he controls all sides. 1v2ing basically. This man hasn't put down a single build. He's all brawn and he's going for it still. Just how much ammunition does he have in these mags? It's crazy. He hasn't stopped. Swapping possibly as well, and oh my goodness. At the very end, running out of steam, running out of gas. Flixie and Kidwo, they survived the onslaught of Reason and the
Hey, look, Flixie and Kidwo ain't had much success against Joe and Ziandi. But when Reason and the Siptos came through, Flixie decided to put on a show.
That's 2 fights they've won so far now. That's huge. Going straight in with 4 eliminations before this mid-game even starts. This should be way more than good on Surge.
Yeah, 12-point game already. It's real nice.
Moving out of the desert now, we look at the zone, look at everything that's happened early game. Reese should have some recap for us to talk about.
Thank you very much, gents. I do indeed. Aqua and Vino got very lucky. They managed to get the gunner spawn, and so far have now got the 2 launch pads from the vault on top of that. So they are absolutely set up to win.
It's the Reese Hub recap. You love to see it. We talked so much about how much that spawn of the gunner NPC is pivotal to how or who holds the power, right? Whether that be Thomas and Trippin or Aquavino. The gun NPC spawn in terms of the side of Cavern, or yeah, in terms of the side of Command Cavern, I thought I said Covert Cavern, but in terms of the side it spawns on, it's 50-50, right? So this time going in the favor of Aquavino. Joe with Ziandi down, up against Flixie and Kidua. We saw they had 4 eliminations, and this was the other 2 that they were able to pick up. Joe did his best to put Flixie down, but Kidua came through just in the nick of time. And so a team who, I think we actually just jinxed them, because we started this whole game talking about how they just don't lose. They've been dominant. It's been a constant. And then they go down. I'm sorry, Joe and Ziandi. I apologize.
Hey, and I'm sorry for this one in advance, okay? Look at me real quick.
No, don't say it, don't say it.
I'm saying it. You know, Ziandi might have been joking around, but on the other side of things, Flixie wasn't kidwoing around. That's not a, there's no way it's a real laugh. This is...
It was a fake laugh. That was awful.
That was good, though.
Tayson, Uruguay. In the heat of battle right now, at the Collider.
I want a second opinion.
You're not getting this.
I'm looking around, there's no one on the stage.
You want to bring Reese back? I'm sure Reese loved your joke. Don't worry, it's fine. Somebody out. If you liked Shire's joke, let him know in the Twitch chat.
I'm going to be called a joke, man.
I hope they do.
Okay, Clown and Rascard are on our screens.
We're seeing the effects, right? Of course, the game started with them being splintered. Rescard was down. You got 2v1 by Asvi and Siren, but now Clown was able to pick him up. It's why they're so deep in Storm. They've not been able to play out this game normally like a regular duo would. Taking a bit of extra time there. Trippin, Thomas, obviously did not have the vault this time, but how many times do we watch this team when they need to do damage for Surge and they just go and hit a couple headshots like it's nothing, all casual like?
It's the buff of the observer, you know?
It's the observer buff?
Observer buff, yeah. Watching them, they feel the spotlight, they feel the pressure, you know? Feel the damage, get it done, get it down. Right now, a lot of teams up in that same type of situation. Savage might be in a bad situation in terms of getting hit in this fight, but they definitely want to keep aggressing here, definitely want to stay box to box, going for these edits, the big shots. 174 below, 100 trade, and now 74 down. Still, in terms of threshold, in terms of Surge, they need to do damage. That edit, stopping Savage and saving him, but he goes right back up. No defensive wall place. Very uncharacteristic, a lack of awareness here, but Benji quickly gets things in tow. He has all the edits too. It's Shizo they're fighting.
Yeah, it's not looking good for these men whatsoever. They need to start doing some damage. To be fair, the teams that they are in and around aren't teams that necessarily have big saying power in the games, and so maybe they can steal their shine. Vanyak, someone who has shined on multiple occasions now. Day 1 and day 2, sitting in 10th place. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I wonder who hit that shot, because that was crazy. He's down to 3 HP. Kami as well, taking some time to heal.
Hydro and Belushi are the ones playing defense here, and we know they're a very sticky duo. They never forget any damage you deal to them, never forget where you are, and when you're close to them, very, very hard to just get rid of. And look at where they are in this fight. No one around right now whatsoever.
Yeah, well, look, Vanyak actually went down to Mustache in the feed. So it was him from a distance that was hitting them shots. And they are now a lot worse for wear. Kami as a solo with not much in the means of materials after spending so much in this fight. Hydro's actually gone down as well, but Lucy's struggling to stay alive. If that is still Malabuka Mustache, these guys are relentless. Like, that would be crazy if it's still them just from the distance. But Hydra now goes down as well, so we got 2 solos here. I'm sure they'll know they're solos, and so the goal is to get in, but Kami, they didn't even let him get a chance.
Belushi does not want to even edit down and go for that fight. Any wall rebuilding, he's going to be the one just completely ratted out. Thomas HD Tripper trying to do their best Mustache type of influence of damage on the server. And we've seen them land a few shots. Playing essentially a side scroller right now. Not going to find much. Tilted Towers endgame. DKS and Bat Sniper are in the business. Should have a very good zone to play in.
This will be fun. I wonder if we can go back and check, in terms of Thomas and Trippin, the games that they've been, you know, good in, whether it's always been the games where they get the vote or not. I'm sure it's more likely that the vote games have been their best games.
Yeah.
Right? If you're just thinking from the perspective of having pads, but I'd love to actually get the numbers on it. That would be fun. Obviously, this is a game where they don't have the pads from the vault, so they'll have to get creative, look to recycle some pads as well if they can.
And this is the effect of zone kind of closing in towards the center. Loss of pressure on all sides, room for people to move, but basically sentry towers set up for everyone to be able to move fast and climb. You mess up builds for a second, it costs you HP. Flodax, incorrect elevation on placing the wall. Suddy and Cammy, they see it, they smell it, and they take strike.
Yeah, they're sitting in a really nice position up on this hill. We know they like to be in this general area anyway for Surge earlier in the game in first and second zone. They've probably not had to move much at all this game. Sitting comfy, perched up above. Highest team in the lobby, it seems, from an elevation standpoint, or one of them at the least. And plenty of dwindling players all around them, ready to give them opportunities for even more damage, even more shots.
276 leading the lobby. Uguay and Tayson on screen right now. Once this zone locks in, we'll know their game plan and where they need to move. Meanwhile, looks like Noah Riley with Deal are in a very tough situation rotating in. Queasy picks up one of the eliminations. On the other side, Clinberry wraps up another. Shouldn't really be a box fight we're looking at. There's one Soul Red Arrow at the south side, moving and trying to get in, and Tayson, Uguay, they pull a really good portion of this zone. Being able to be here, not only be able to rebuild, but claim so much, their move is to get even more of this entire building, deny access for many of the players down below.
And the big thing is about Tilted being on these buildings, so many opportunities for teams to refarm, right? They can now look to try and get their brick up to cap. I don't think there's going to be much metal in that building, but they'll try their best. Oh,
wow.
Hellfire. That was a jump scare and a half, but he kept his composure.
And he's rewarded. Gold Striker. That's what he was up against as well. It was lined up, and he won that fight.
Is he that guy? Is he the guy right now?
We've actually asked that, I think, about him before. And the answer was a definitive maybe. So I'm going to actually retaliate with a pop. With a possibly at this moment. Top 9, right? This is the game where you can really make a difference. Game number 10, you set yourself up to just be on a trajectory of comeback or hold on. That's the question for them. That's the same question for Stompy and Ju as well. 7th place overall, right behind just, you know, the echelon of top 5. They want to move in.
And they've done so well. I feel like so many times in these games today, we've seen them playing the dead side of the zone. Nobody really around them. Being in awkward positions to get Surge, but coming through nevertheless, hitting the shots when they need to be hit. And it's all about now converting that into good end games where you're accumulating plenty of points. Same to be said for Cammy and Seti, but Seti, you gotta actually make it to end game, son. You gotta be careful. Can't afford to take too much damage there. Obviously moving down that hill that they were positioned so well on.
Trippin and Thomas hitting each other instead of the players. Unfortunate.
They're going to have to move down, right?
They're going to need damage. I think that was very crucial for them to hit at least one target in general. Thomas is getting a few blows as they go. But yeah, they have to move right now, Levin, and then try to get above this threshold. Thomas is really working it. Up to 113 now. I can hear the tags on it going across, going off. But as we get so small in the zone, you can't find long-range tags as easy anymore. You have to go for those box fights.
And we're in Tilted, right? Look at the lines of sight. There's just not much you can see around. They made a conscious effort to stay higher elevated in case they do pull zone, and then they have to play that 5th zone in that area. Snaze, on the other hand, we'll see where it pulls, yeah? We'll see where it pulls. Got a couple seconds. Switch away from it, so we can't see where the zone pulled. Hopefully we'll be able to see in a second, but...
Okay, hold up. Scram Hellfire. Lobby focus.
It pulled on them, so Tayson and Thomas are sitting in a really nice position. They'll have to do damage, though, to stay in the game.
This is just too much, overwhelming for Hellfire and Scram. The entire lobby understand they're way at max moving in terms of space. Just caught off on the top left side of the zone. Have 1 or 2 teams focused on their position right now, and they've heard 2 shield cracks. This launch pad, they're gonna have to wiggle in the air like they haven't before.
Yeah, I think Hellfire is still scouting around to see if maybe they can recycle, right? They want to save this pad, clearly, but it might just be the better, safer option to try and use it. Maybe even a short pad wrapped around the right side. I think they will look to go high on it. But they need to make sure they don't get sprayed as they make their way in. They've now made that rotation. The pad comes through. They wrap their way around, trying to use the buildings to protect themselves. Their line of sights. Aqua and Vino no longer sitting in first place as we watch them, but certainly on a pathway to doing so.
And all they wanted to do is just skip any portions of the game that are very troublesome for them. So off spawn, things look very good. Everything's fine, and they got the vault. And then just moving from the 4th to 5th zone, getting to a half and half that's too far. Looks like they pulled it this time. They're gonna be fine with the refarm, fine inside this base. Up top, Hen and Queasy trying again, but this time the stakes very different. The top 3 teams, the top 4 teams, all still alive, all veining for heights.
We saw a back-to-back 4 dominant height team yesterday. Aqua and Vino, they won 2 games back-to-back, playing up on height. Will Queasy and Hen look to steal their flow, word for word, bar for bar. Or will they succumb to the pressure now that Tayson and Chapix and Vino and Aqua are in this lobby, are in this game?
I mean, it was their song before, right? No features. This time, the tune, the song, it's very different. Yeah, a lot more active, the BPM higher. We have Tayson and Oogway right across with them. Just saying, we're gonna hold on to this height. Look at this is the telegraphing of this height fight. Marco Clinberry, the same height as Tayson and Oogway as well. They might be able to stay up top here too. Might not be an impact on the leaderboards, but a chance here. What are Tayson and Oogway going to do? They're looking for a pad anywhere, somewhere, using...
Oh, they can't find one. They're searching. They know one's here, but they don't know where it is.
No way.
They're using so many chunk smashes.
No way.
They are looking. I've seen this happen to them early in the season where they really struggle to find one.
Zone's gone.
Yeah, they just need to. They need to pad. They need to find one. They finally do find one, but look at the HP.
2, 1.
It's done. Tayson down. Chapix, will he follow? No.
3,
able to
2,
in maybe
1.
Down. They spent way too long searching for a recycled pad. It happened to them so many times earlier in the season. That was one of their biggest hiccups at this stage in the game. But that trip up will be everything Aqua and Vino were hoping for. They are in the zone. They're looking more comfy, and they're using a pad now. A pad that Tayson and Oogway so hoped they could have had. And this is what they wanted to do with it. Take height. But Aqua and Vino are fighting for it now.
Aqua did this once before, took a head immediately. This time is his position that he gains. Afterwards, looking for Queasy's head first. He doesn't find it, sees the body event for a split second, and gets the big shot right on his back. And now they have the essence of control slightly, and a knock to Hen down. Can't hold on to the pressure that Aqua and Vino put down.
A repeat of what we saw yesterday. Queasy having to play as a solo. Nebs hitting big shots onto Juice. Stompy now will be a solo, but the battle for height is what